Welcome back to another FPL deadline stream, this time out of Game Week 15, and there's a lot to uncover. We get 5 free transfers after this Saturday deadline passes going into Game Week 16 because of AFCON, and a lot of us will have a chip remaining for the first half of the season. In my case, it's the wild card, and my current plan is to use it in Game Week 16 and then keeping those 5 free transfers on top of a wild card squad, which sounds very promising on paper, right? Well, if you get the wild card correct, that is. But that's what I'll be doing over the next week, making a wildcard video, talking about it in my team selection and the next deadline stream. But technically, there is another deadline stream in between the next FPL one because UCL Fantasy will take place over the course of midweek, and I'll be doing a best limitless and wildcard squad, my team selection, and the deadline stream on Tuesday. But I'm going to get straight into your questions as always, and then provide graphics, team news, injury updates, and everything you need to know for Game Week 15. Drop a like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, share this stream around with those that love FPL and UCL Fantasy, and also hype the video on the YouTube app. All of that is massively appreciated. The same goes for Super Chatters, patrons, chat members, and also those that gifted Super Chats and, well, I should say, gifted memberships over the last couple of months. So massively appreciated, and let's keep on growing the community. There's my Discord server, Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky. There's my FPL and FPL Challenge Leagues, and much more, which can all be found in the description. So the first message that I see anyway is from Man City are finished. Chiesa could be the no-brainer once Slot gives him a chance in the Premier League. Yeah, a lot of Liverpool fans do like Chiesa, and in limited game time he has made an impression, even in that Carabao Cup final last February. But yeah, I don't know. I just, with Salah going, you could maybe see the opportunity there, but even then, you can see other alternatives like Szoboszlai playing in that sort of position, and we've seen that happen in the last couple of games. So, yeah, Chiesa should get some more game time now, but you can't guarantee it. Let Game Week 15 chaos begin like the first 90 minutes of the opening draw of the World Cup yesterday. Yeah, it took 87 minutes in total, which is funny. Time to sell AFCON players now or save it. It depends on the African player in question. So with Ndai and Mbeumo, you can certainly make a case for keeping them, and I think Mbeumo is a clear hold. With Ndai, I'd maybe look to push elsewhere, and in my situation, one of my possible transfers is to sell Ndai to Minter, and that's something else that people need to bear in mind. I know sometimes making no transfer is the best thing to do for your FPL team, but use this opportunity to use up all your free transfers. Don't take hits if you can, but I will just use up all your free transfers because irrespective of if you have 0, you got 1, if you've taken hits, if you've got 5 free transfers already, everyone is going to get 5 free transfers in Game Week 16. So you might as well use all of them up. And this is something I discussed in my chip strategy guide and my how to play FPL video, essentially the key changes to the game this season. James Klein 123 says, hello Dylan, want to get some Newcastle players in for the Burnley game, sell Van Dijk to Chow, or Semenyo to Bruno Guimaraes, or Mateta to Voltemada. From the players you've mentioned there, probably Semenyo out. He will stay with Bournemouth during the African Cup of Nations because Ghana didn't qualify, but I think that is probably the transfer I'd recommend the most. Hi Dylan, please choose 2, Semenyo, Ndai, Van der Ven, and Rodgers. Semenyo and Ndai. Is it okay to do a -8? Donnarumma out to Raya, Semenyo to Foden. I can't get Foden because of Free City already. I'd probably hold off this week. Now, long term, I do prefer the duo you're bringing in, but for a -8, I'm not so sure if that will result in a gain in Game Week 15. Hey, Dylan, got the free hit and bench boost chip, planning to use in Game Week 16 in and after, so my 1 free transfer, should I sell 1 of Richards, Mukiele to which defender since I'm going to bench boost in 17 or 18? Yeah, you might want to consider Richards to Van Heck. There aren't really many transfers you could make with that sort of, budget, but that's something that springs to mind for me, just to kind of use it up and maybe gain a few points in the process. But ultimately with defender transfers and especially goalkeeper moves, yeah, usually you don't see a massive swing. It can happen, but the odds are those big swings and rank rises will come from the midfield and forward line more often than not. -4 Semenyo to Eze. No, I wouldn't take a hit for that this week. Chase says, hi Dylan, team is Raya, Richards, Van Dijk, O'Reilly, Mbeumo, Enzo, Foden, Semenyo, Thiago, Haaland, Voltemada, Dubravka, Anderson, Rodon, Mukiele, 1.4 in the bank, 1 free transfer. So I think a lot of people will be in a situation where they've got a decent team on paper this week, but yeah, maybe only one free transfer and they don't know what to do with it. So looking at your squad, there is the slight possibility that O'Reilly is benched. I think Ait-Nouri could start here in his final game for Man City before heading off to the African Cup of Nations. So I think that would spring to mind. If not, something similar to what I highlighted earlier, Richards to Van Heck. And I would prefer Richards in the long term or a Palace defender, but this is just for one gimmick only, and then you have 5 free transfers, right? And also some people might have the wild card in their back pocket. So it just depends on the context. But yeah, I was thinking of maybe suggesting Semenyo out from the players you've got. And obviously Mbeumo, hold against Wolves away and then sell in Game Week 16. But I think Semenyo could be arguably a sell right now. He is fixture proof. He could haul against Chelsea, but the Cherries have been poor recently. So yeah, that would be one of my recommendations. Either O'Reilly or Richards out, if not Semenyo. Keep Enzo or move to a 1-week punt? If yes, who? Or should I prep for the bench boost and do Rodon to Anderson van den Berg? Plans to go aggressive in Game Week 16 with 5 free transfers and bench boost in 17. Well, going from Enzo to Bruno Guimaraes could work very well. That would be something that really appeals to me. If not Minter. Those are 2 midfielders who I'll compare later on. I think buying one of them could be worth it. I still like Enzo long term, but yeah, if you were to kind of use up your last free transfer, that's something I would entertain. So good to see you, Harrison James, and a lot of members in the building. So I'll be going through their questions and comments first. Hey Dylan, which one would you start this week out of Troffert, Rodon, or Alderete? All bad fixtures. Yeah, it's not a great situation, to be fair. At the moment, I would lean towards Troffert. But yeah, Alderete would certainly be last in that equation. Ndai to Foden or Semenyo to Foden? I'd rather so Ndai. Welcome, Barif. Good to see you. Play Danga or Bowen? Yeah, another difficult question. I think Bowen played fairly well the other day, but I do like Brentford attackers against Tottenham as well. I will lean towards Bowen, only just. Well, Barif, the free hit obviously is team dependent. With your squad, I would consider, I think, Game Week 16, but what you need to do as well is use the website fpl.team, visualize the next couple of weeks, and you can compare how your teams look, and I think that will really help you in determining the best course of action. But Game Week 16 would be decent, and you've got 5 free transfers to use after free hitting, so I think that is what I'd recommend. Welcome, Anish. Hey, Dylan, Raya, Timber, Van Dijk, Richards, Mbeumo, Gakpo, Bruno Guimaraes, that is, Eze, Haaland, Thiago, Welbeck, with Dubravka, Schade, Chalobah, and Goodmanson on the bench, 1.7 in the bank, and 1 free transfer. So, yeah, there are some similar situations happening here. As good as Eze is, and I think he's worth keeping in the long term in certain situations, I think he's someone you could offload this week and kind of chase that 1-week punt. So I think Eze to one of Minter or Bruno Guimaraes could work fairly well. You don't have enough to go to Foden. It is what it is, right? I think he will start, but yeah, to get Foden, you need to make a downgrade elsewhere. So maybe like Kevin Schade to Minter and then Eze to Foden for a -4. If you're willing to do that, I mean, that looks really good on paper. However, that means benching one of Mbeumo, Gakpo, Bruno, Haaland, Thiago, Welbeck. So as much as I like those transfers I just suggested, it's for a -4 hit. You get 5 free transfers next week, and you have to bench a decent asset this week. So as a result, I think I just stick with 1 free move and probably sell Eze, because then you're looking at your defensive line. Sure, you could do something like Timber to Munoz, or maybe go to, well, from Richards to Van Heck. I don't really see a massive gain from that, but ultimately any gain is better than no gain. Hope you're well, Dylan. Would you start Rodgers or O'Reilly? Have Raya in goal? I'd start O'Reilly, but I got some concerns. I think there's a chance he's benched. Man City do play Real Madrid in midweek, so I think that plays a big part. Start Indai or Igor Thiago? Igor Thiago. Newcastle has so many good assets. Suggest one. Bruno Guimaraes, since you've got Burn and Voltemade already. No worries, Baraf. Do I start Anderson over Van Heck, Chow, Burn, or none? No, I wouldn't start Joachim Anderson over them. Thank you, Anish. I could do Eze to Foden. Oh, yeah, yeah, that is true. Yeah, sorry. I mean, I completely overlooked that. Yeah, I'd just do that then. I think Eze to Foden would be the best course of action. So, ultimately, with the other move I suggested, I wouldn't mind doing that for free in Gimmick 16 and beyond. But yeah, Eze to Foden, as you point out, you can do it. So, that's the transfer I would make. Having said that, Sunderland aren't an easy team to play against. I think with City being at home, they will get the win, but yeah, Foden is still a quality asset for the coming weeks if he continues this form, so definitely my recommendation. Thank you, Harrison James. Should I start Cucurella or Richards? I would start Richards, personally. King Julian, good to see you. Ola Dylan, hope you're good, mate. I have a question, been holding off on free hit, but now debating popping it in last minute. Yeah, I'll be honest, whenever someone says, oh, last minute, I'm looking to wildcard a free hit, you might want to reconsider it, because to then, look, you've got plenty of time still, over an hour left until the deadline, but I'm never that comfortable about sort of building a free hit or wildcard squad, you know, and you decide on the last day, oh, maybe I should do it. That can obviously change, maybe injuries and stuff happen in between, so that pushes you towards a certain decision, but yeah, that's just something I would say off the bat. So you took a -4 hit, by the way, and it would be wiped out with a free hit. So, makes sense. Yeah. You've got a decent squad for this week, in my opinion. I think some of those players would be retained on the free hit. So, a Newcastle defender like Dan Burn, Foden, I would say Mbumo, Saka, even Bruno Guimaraes, they're all free hit worthy. And Voltemade and Haaland would be two of the best forwards this week on paper. I would also include Danny Welbeck and Igor Thiago in that list. But Mateta, his record against Fulham isn't great, but his underlying stats are always incredible, so he has a chance of scoring in any given game. But essentially, you'd be improving Sanchez, probably Gay, and that could be to Munoz. O'Reilly is someone you might want to reconsider, because there's a chance Aït-Nouri starts. And then maybe Mateta. So, in my opinion, you're only making 3 or 4 significant upgrades, but that could be enough to gain 20 points. So, because of the -4 hit as well, I would lean towards yes in your situation, but only just. Let me know your thoughts in the live chat. Looks like Salah's not happy about him being benched. I don't think any player is happy about being benched, especially when they've had a poor season like he has. Best City mids to bring in if I can't afford Foden this week, says Richard Millerchip. Probably Doku then. But there's a big gap at this moment in time. Hi Dylan, who should I bench out of Voltemade, Thiago and Rice? I'd bench Declan Rice, as good as he is. And I believe he'll start, by the way. I'm first subbing Haaland. I think O'Reilly starts. Pep said he is not a grandfather. Yeah, look. I'm not saying O'Reilly will definitely be benched. It's just a possibility. In my predicted lineups, I have considered Aït-Nouri starting. Voltemade and Doku for Rodgers and Joao Pedro. Yeah, looks decent. I'm not a massive fan of Doku. And on the free hit in Gameweek 13, I almost went for him, but in the end, I chose Phil Foden. And I obviously bought Foden last week in my normal squad. But yeah, I think it's a good duo. And Nick Voltemade is an upgrade on Joao Pedro, that's for sure. Welcome, Punjabi. Sanchez, Calafiori, O'Reilly, Chow, Eze, Semenyo, Foden, Minter, Voltemade, Haaland, Thiago. And on the bench, Dubravka, Van Dijk, Enzo, Van de Ven. What changes can I make in the starting and benching? Possibly Van Dijk over Calafiori. And if you have some concerns about O'Reilly starting, that's something you may want to also entertain. And City aren't great defensively. I think they could concede despite being at home. But I think overall the starting 11 and bench is probably fine as it is. But I would consider Van Dijk in for one of Calafiori or O'Reilly. What do you think of Palmer on free hit? Maresca quotes, hints to start, and Bournemouth have been awful of late. And Munoz captain in 14 worked. Shame I didn't gain on Haaland. So Enzo Maresca also said something similar last week heading into the Leeds game, and he essentially said in his press conference that he has a good chance of starting and playing, 50, 60 minutes and building up that match sharpness. So that's going to happen eventually, but yeah, it's still a slow process. They don't want to rush him in because he could get injured once more. So look, Bournemouth have been poor recently, especially on their travels, but it's still going to be a difficult game for Chelsea, and I think it'll be low scoring. Palmer costs more than 10 million still, and that could also detract from other areas in the 50-man squad. Now, with the free hit, I think you only need one decent bench player. The rest you can cheap out, and it's all about your starting 11, but that's something I would also think about. Buying Palmer against a decent side in Bournemouth, I think it's going to be a low-scoring game personally, and you're spending a lot of money on that one player, so I'm a little bit hesitant on the free hit, to be fair. I would have been more keen against Leeds last week, but we all know how the game turned out, and Palmer was only a substitute. But I think he will start. I agree with you on that. And Palmer could be a difference maker, that's for sure. But he needs to get that return, costing 10.3 million. Hi, Dylan. I did draw Pedro to Thiago, and plans for next week are Ndai, Semenyo, Caicedo, Gakpo, Voltemada, to Minter, Bruno, Xhaka, Bruno Guimaraes, and Mateta. They're good transfers on paper, but what I would say to people is you don't need to use up all 5 free transfers at once. You can do them gradually. For example, with maybe a Voltemada, by that stage you might not want to sell him, especially if he hauls against Burnley. So just bear that in mind. But with the rest, I understand, especially Caicedo, he's still suspended, and you can definitely find an upgrade. Now, is Xhaka necessarily that sort of upgrade? Maybe not, but he facilitates the other moves you're making, so I understand that. But I just think Voltemada to Mateta isn't that necessary, to be quite honest with you. Hi, Dylan. Should I do Mateta to Voltemada and Semenyo to Foden for a -4? I am very tempted by that, to be fair, but I'm going to probably say no, which is a bit of a boring answer. In regards to the last question here, thinking of doing Voltemada to Guiu and Xhaka to Foden, I see what you're getting at, but I probably wouldn't at this moment in time. And I'm guessing that's also for Gameweek 16, but I'd still be a bit hesitant. Start Senesi or Chalobah? Probably Chalobah. I predict Foden to be benched, Cherki or Marmoush to start Sazizi. We'll see. Bruno Fernandes or Foden? I think long-term is still Fernandes for me. Yeah. This week is close, and assuming that both players... Well, Fernandes obviously will start. I do rank Foden slightly higher, but that's because of his recent form. I think in the grand scheme of things, Bruno is still the more reliable pick. Hi Dylan, big up for your great content as always. Thank you very much. Would you do Pope and Enzo to Gakpo and Verbruggen for a -4? No, I wouldn't. I have Dubravka on the bench as backup. Yeah, goalkeeper move. I know Pope is injured, but I'd rather just start Dubravka. And yeah, Enzo to Gakpo, I think you're downgrading long-term, if I'm honest. Who do you think I should bench? Saka for Foden, Gakpo, Bruno Fernandes, Minter, Haaland, Thiago, Welbeck. I'd bench Gakpo for Saka, but that's just my opinion. Bench Miley or Anderson? Joachim Anderson. Yeah, good question. I'd probably bench Miley, but he did very well in the last game he started and even got a few attacking returns. So, yeah, he's not a terrible option, that's for sure. But yeah, Joachim Anderson probably getting DEFCON points against Crystal Palace. Not much more than that, in my opinion. Start 1, Anderson or Forest or Richards? I'd lean towards Anderson, personally. Bench 1, Van Dijk, Szoboszlai, Semenyo, Cucurella or Thiago? Yeah, Thiago would definitely start for me. It's probably between Szoboszlai and Cucurella to bench. And at this moment in time, I would suggest benching Dominic Szoboszlai, but only just. Mateta to Voltemada for a -4? No. Triple captain Haaland? I prefer Gameweek 17 when he faces West Ham. Hi Dylan, should I transfer out Rice for a -4? Probably not, and it also depends which player you're bringing in, but I don't think it's going to be worth it. Best Gameweek for free hit? It's very team dependent, mate. I can't answer for everybody and say this is the week you should free hit, but I would consider Gameweek 16 because then, you get 5 free transfers afterwards, and that really helps after playing a free hit chip. Thiago or Foden, who should I bring in first? Yeah, it's also about the player you're selling. And I still prefer Semenyo over Joao Pedro ever so slightly, but that's a close one. I would rather buy Igor Thiago. Thanks, Dylan. I'm just concerned with the City benching potential. That said, a free hit team next week or 17 would look completely different to my team, so maybe more value using it there. Yeah, but it's also the -4 hit, right? And if you're planning to make more changes, you know, let's say 4 or 5, then I would suggest using it now. But that's where a website like FPL.team, even livefpl.net, they all have these planners where you can visualize future game weeks, and that's the perfect way of determining whether you should free hit in 16, 17, or even now. Morning, Dylan. Start 1, Elliot Anderson, Enzo, or Achimpong. It's close between the first two. Achimpong would be last. I don't think he starts anyway. And I would back Bournemouth to score. So, yeah, between Elliot Anderson and Enzo, I would lean towards Enzo only just there. Will Mourinho start today? I think so. He's returned in 4 consecutive games. Yeah, he's been brilliant for Arsenal recently. And I think Gyökeres has to work very hard to earn his spot back. In my opinion, Gyökeres will start in the Champions League against Club Brugge. Bench 1, Richards, Burn, O'Reilly, Reece James. Reece James, I think. It's between him and Richards. That's a quite difficult one, actually. Because I think Reece James can offer you a bit more in terms of attacking potential. The ceiling is certainly higher than Richards. I mean, that goes without saying. But Richards can get DEFCON very consistently, and his floor is arguably higher against Fulham away. So, very close. I'm going to stick on my gut and say start Richards, but only just. Yeah, goalkeeper for 4.8 million, Robert Sanchez. I've been saying this for the last couple of wildcard videos. That wouldn't change. Well, you did a funny thing the other day against Leeds, so that's why, for me, look, Chelsea are decent, they're making progress, but they don't have what it takes to win a title or compete for it, in my opinion. We'll see if that ages horribly. Carlos says, usaré triple captain esta fecha, me da miedo los minutos de Haaland, o que directamente no juegue. ¿Qué piensas de triple captain a Welbeck? Tío, la verdad, prefiero usar el triple captain en la jornada 17 cuando Haaland juega con West Ham. Inbred Pancake, what a name. One transfer, sell Pope or keep and play Dubravka. Can't afford Raya and can't afford Foden from Semenyo. Seems like a boring week. Yeah, it can seem like that. I understand your point of view. But, yeah, in terms of what you're asking here, selling a goalkeeper, I mean, especially for just 1 week, essentially. I mean, I say just 1 week. That's only if you wildcard in 16. But, it's also about improving the biggest weakness of your squad. So to sell Semenyo, I would recommend Bruno Guimaraes, Minter, long-term Declan Rice, but he's not someone I'd necessarily buy this week against Aston Villa away with his yellow flag. So that also plays a big part. But I think in your situation, it might be best to make that goalkeeper move. And then you've got 5 free transfers where you can use them in other areas. So selling Nick Pope to Raya ultimately would be the one, but you say you can't afford him. So I think Robert Sanchez could do the trick long term. But yeah, it's an interesting question. I mean, would I rather just start Dubravka or Sanchez this week? There's not much in it, to be quite honest with you. I think both of them will ultimately blank. So yeah, it's a difficult question, and I understand why you feel that way. But yeah, long term, I think the best move is to sell your goalkeeper. Nick Pope will be out for several weeks. No worries, Punjabi. Went to free hit. Yeah, I covered that a few minutes ago, to be honest. I mean, it's team dependent, but one thing I would consider is using it in 16 and then having 5 free transfers. But once again, use the website fpl.team and visualize how things will look like in every single match day. Yeah, I think Mourinho will start, as covered earlier. Bench boost next game is good. Yes, and that's something I talked about in my chip strategy guide. But unfortunately, I used my bench boost, well, a couple of game weeks ago by this point, a few months ago now, and it was crap. But last week, my bench was fairly decent, and not much has changed in terms of personnel, so it can happen. Bench Burn or Semenyo? Semenyo has the highest ceiling, but I would start Burn at this moment in time. If play Burn 4-3-3, yeah, I would start Semenyo over Lacroix, personally, or even Timber. I'd start Semenyo over one of those two, but definitely start Burn. Should I sacrifice Welbeck for Minter and Bruno Guimaraes? Not necessarily, no. Matthias Presler says Donnarumma, Timber, Virgil, Gay, Bruno Guimaraes, Bruno Fernandes, Gravenberch, Semenyo, Haaland, Mateta, Voltemada, Dubravka, Sessegnon, Anderson, Van de Ven, planning Mateta to Thiago. Who should I bench? Possibly Gravenberch. He's the one that kind of sticks out as the most benchable. Enza replacement, 7.2. Is Neto okay? I'd rather go for Bruno Guimaraes and Minter. And Rice long-term is even better, I'd say. King Julian says, I'll hold it and use it next week. I think, as you said, a lot of my 11 will be in the template free hit this week, so even if players are benched, it's not a huge disaster. Regret the -4 in hindsight. Yeah, it's a close one, I think. Very close. What pushed me towards saying now is the -4 hit, really. Hey, Dylan, any ideas where to use my 1 free transfer this week? I think a lot of people are in a similar situation. Ride, Dubravka, Senesi, Gvardiol, Munoz, Byrne, Mukiele, Rice, and Dye. Gravenberch, Bruno Fernandes, Barnes. Okay, one thing I would say is maybe Barnes to Minter. That stands out to me, and Gordon could get the nod this week as well. Bruno Guimaraes or Minter for Ndai. I like both of them a lot, to be fair. I'm going to compare both of their stats in literally just a few minutes, so yeah, I'm going to hold that. I think that maybe will answer your question, and I'll get to it there and provide my conclusion. Both of them are highlighted in my recent wildcard videos. Good to see you, Jamie. Will O'Reilly start? In my current predicted lineup, I don't think so. But look, it's going to be a difficult call, and Man City have such a big game in midweek against Real Madrid, so that's something worth bearing in mind. Minter in this gaming for Rice, Ndai, or Barnes? Well, Ndai is a sell from Gameweek 16 onwards, but the way I'd go about it is selling Barnes this week, and I think Ndai the next. With Gordon and Barnes, you're going to get plenty of rotation, so that's going to be a headache in general. So if, for example, before the deadline, we see that Barnes starts, then you change that and sell Ndai first. But yeah, I don't think Barnes will start, so that's why I'm recommending that. Taking out Semenyo and Joao Pedro for Thiago and Foden. Yeah, that looks really good. And ultimately, if I was buying a striker long-term, I would have bought Thiago and not Welbeck. And with the wildcard and 5 free transfers, I will be bringing in Thiago myself. But yeah, I see them as massive upgrades, as good as Semenyo was at the beginning of the season. Thank you very much, Awali. I appreciate it. And also for the reminder, Mateta to Voltemada for free. I'd be open to that. For a -4 hit, no, which others have asked me about. But for free, I think there is a gain to be made this week from buying Voltemada. Palmer or Saka for the free hit? Saka. Best goalkeeper in this game week? Yeah, that's a difficult one. Probably Ramsdale, actually. Rodgers to Foden worth a hit. Think I'll just wait till next week and swap in Bumo instead, since I like Rodgers next to after this week. Also did well against Arsenal prior. Yeah, Rodgers played very well against Arsenal at Villa Park, which was in Gameweek 2 last season. He didn't play well at the Emirates, but yeah, the game against Arsenal at Villa Park really caught my eye. And he didn't score or assist, but yeah, despite Villa losing 2-0 on the day, he was arguably one of the best players on the pitch. So yeah, I get what you're saying. I'd still be tempted by the hit and go for Foden, but it's also a bit awkward to, take any hits in a week just before you get 5 free transfers, in my opinion. So it also depends who you could start over Rodgers. But yeah, as you say there, you've got Mbumo. Selling him to Foden could also be the better move long term. So yeah, I think probably hold out, and City could rotate heavily anyway this week. So yeah, good question. Best free defenders in this week? Yeah, I'd say one of Byrne or Chow. You might even say both of them. Munoz would stand out. And I still think Van Dijk, Timber are up there. But the priority would be Newcastle, and then I'd recommend a C defender, depending if you can nail on the right one, like Gvardiol or O'Reilly to start. But yeah, essentially Byrne, Chow, and Munoz are the top 3 this week. Okay, so what I'm going to do is go through different screens, show you graphics from the team selection video, predicted lineups, so you can see my current thoughts. A lot of people are asking about certain City players starting and stuff like that. I appreciate that. You're a true legend, man. I appreciate your streams. Thank you very much. Recommendations and energy. Well, very kind of you, and hopefully you come back for more UCL fantasy and FPL content, so I appreciate it. Let's now go to the FDR, and this is going to be from Fantasy Football Hub. Newcastle are top until Game Week 20. Man City, Liverpool, Man United and Brighton are in the top 5. And Brentford aren't too far behind there. With the bottom 5, Sunderland, Aston Villa, Chelsea, Wolves and Crystal Palace. And predicted points for the next 6 game weeks, essentially. Or 8 game weeks, this is. So until Game Week 22, Haaland is top. But if we use the same parameters as the FDR, so let's go to Game Week 20. Yeah, not many changes. So we got Foden in second, Saka, Bruno Fernandes, O'Reilly in the top 5, Semenyo, Cunha, Szoboszlai, Rice and Thiago. With potential price changes, I'm going to refresh this and see if anything is modified, and it looks like it has. So Mark Gay, Raya, Neto, Timber, Foden, Casemiro and Burn could all rise. I mean, Foden went up in price overnight, but people are just buying him in droves after those massive returns over the last 2 game weeks, which is the main reason why I've gone from like 500k to 100-ish K. In terms of price falls, there is Jorginho Rota, Vicario, Tonali, Kirkes, Tell, Maguire, and not all of these will happen, by the way, but Mateta is another possible price faller, Mohamed Salah as well. And ultimately, a lot of people will be selling African players like Salah after this deadline with 5 free transfers. Yeah, expect to see a lot of price changes and activity over the weekend. So someone asked me earlier, Bruno Guimaraes or Minter, who would you pick? So let's break down their stats. The Brazilian has 3 goals to Minter's 1, but there is a clear difference with the assists. Minter has 7 to Bruno Guimaraes' 4. In terms of shots, it's quite similar. They both have 4 on target, but shots in the box is the big difference, and Minter has 19 to Bruno Guimaraes' 7, and it's 20 shots for the African winger and 15 for the Brazilian midfielder. With the XG, it's identical, 2.28. is in favour of Minter, and Bruno Guimaraes has exactly 2, and the expected assist is also going to be weighted towards the Brighton winger with 1.81, and Bruno Guimaraes has 1.12. With big chances though, Bruno Guimaraes has double the amount. He has 4 to Minter's 2, but big chance created. This is a huge difference. 5 for Minter, which is quite impressive for his price tag. Guimaraes has 0. Key passes is solid for both, but Minter does lead in this regard as well. This is a very difficult question, I think, and ultimately, if you've got Voltemada or Welbeck already, that could determine how, I would approach this. So I would prefer not doubling up on an attack long term. I'm looking at buying Minter myself, to be quite honest with you, and yeah, I'm not even able to afford it in Dai to Bruno Guimaraes anymore, regardless. So this wouldn't really be a decision for me to make unless I sell Semenyo to one of these 2 players, but I think the way I feel about this is I would lean towards Minter just for the open play threat, and I think the assists will be a bit more sustainable. Having said that, a lot of the assists he has gotten this season have come from shots and rebounds, essentially, so he's not getting classic assists per se, and even the XA has been vastly overperformed, but the big chance created and key passes gives me hope. I like both of them a lot, and they would enter my thoughts with a wild card and using free transfers to bolster your midfield. But maybe you disagree and you prefer Bruno Guimaraes. I'll be honest, this is a very tough one. And even this week, for example, you're looking at the options. And by the way, why is it saying Game Week 13? I need to change that. So yeah, it's only showing me the fixtures for Game Weeks 13 to 15, but essentially West Ham at home for Brighton and Burnley at home for Newcastle. But ultimately, it's going to be a very close call. Minter offers better value. He's 6.3 million. Bruno Guimaraes is at 6.7, and I think he's going to rise very soon. Let's now go to the website FPL.team, which I always talk about in my videos. So with my current squad, going into Game Week 16 without making any transfer, well, ultimately makes no sense to do that, right? So you can see here, I've got 5 free transfers in 16. Everyone gets that because of AFCON. So you might as well use up everything you've got now, and you can find ways of chasing or the points right in front of you, essentially, and go for 1 week punts. So that's where in Dai, the Minter could come in. That's something I'm really thinking about, and that increases my expected points from 56 point... Actually, no. Just forget what I said. It actually decreases it. So FPL.team are telling me don't do it. I'm surprised by that, to be fair. The other one would be Bruno Guimaraes. So tripling up on Newcastle against Burnley. So that's kind of what they recommend. But guess what? I'm 0.2 million over budget now. So in order to get Bruno Guimaraes, what I have to do is sell Semenyo. But is that going to increase the expected points? Only just 56.5. Ultimately, I don't really base decisions off that, but it's a nice sort of like barometer and thing to measure. But in terms of replacing Semenyo, I'm going to show you my team selection graphics and some other ideas. I wasn't just thinking about Bruno Guimaraes and Minter, but also something very left field and also chasing this sort of ex-club relationship sort of thing between Man United and Wolves. So that will be discussed very soon. I think the most likely transfer for me this week, though, is Ndai Minter, and I talked about that in my team selection. So if we then go to Gameweek 16, the defensive line looks good. You know, Sanchez at home to Everton, Timber facing Wolves, Burn up against Sunderland away, and Van Dijk facing Brighton. But then I've got two Brighton attackers if I were to buy Minter against Liverpool away. I've got Foden and Haaland against Crystal Palace away. They'd probably be kept on the wildcard anyway. But Semenyo and Fernandes are facing each other. Voltemada up against Sunderland. So it's not terrible, but the cracks start to appear in the midfield. And on my bench, Dubravka, Reinders, Lacroix and Reinildo Mandava. But with 5 free transfers and the wildcard, I can build a very solid platform. My current plan is to use the wildcard chip in 16 and then start using 5 free transfers from 17 onwards with the quick turnarounds and to deal with all the injuries, suspensions and other factors that will happen over the Christmas period. So with the wildcard that I talked about a few days ago, I am now over budget in terms of my squad value and stuff, 0.2 million. So in order to find enough money, you could just do Munoz to Gay or another Palace defender. That'd be the simplest sort of downgrade. Some might even consider Sanchez to Verbruggen. That wouldn't be too shabby. And I think Van Dijk is probably the one I would downgrade and sort of sacrifice to be able to afford this. But then who do you go to? And that's where the key question lies. And you might even consider going for a mid-priced option. And that gives you more money to spend in the midfield. So let me know in the live chat, who would you go for? You might even consider downgrading Anderson to a cheaper midfielder. I think that could also work fairly well. Timber to Calafiori or a different Arsenal defender also works, but I think with the rest, I'd like to keep it fairly intact. Also, what you might want to consider is Minter for Bruno Guimaraes, but once again, I talked about this earlier, I would rather diversify the midfield and attack and not double up on Brighton long term, and nor would I want to double up on Newcastle offensively in the long term. But that's just a personal opinion of mine. You might feel differently, and that's completely understandable. In terms of FPL challenge, I've currently got Lamens, Chow, Saka, Haaland captain, Welbeck and Thiago, but I'm not making full or taking full advantage of the challenge this week, which is called Big Save. So double points are awarded for goalkeepers and defenders, priced at 5 million or under. So I'll get back to this after the deadline passes and we can discuss some possible changes to this FPL challenge squad. So let me show you my team selection graphics from yesterday and kind of summarize what I talked about, because the full commentary can be found in that video. But this is how I did for Gameweek 14. I'll let that play in the background. No messages will be highlighted in this section, but they will be very soon when I get back to my FPL squad with the website. But yeah, Gameweek 14 was another great one. Foden was a game changer. And after Tuesday, I was actually up to 85k in the world. But despite a disappointing Wednesday and Thursday, it was still enough to get a green arrow to 173k in the world. And you can also see the prices, which are all updated based on what happened overnight. And in terms of the transfer plans, I think Timber to Munoz could be a decent 1 week punt, but I would lose value in Timber. Welbeck to Thiago is also solid, but I don't think it's worth it this week. Semenyo to Cunha is really on the agenda, and the same goes for Ndai to Minter. But even Bruno Guimaraes could come in to replace Antoine Semenyo, and that's something else I'm weighing up, and I'll be putting a poll out very soon. So my current plan is to go for Sanchez in goal and also having this sort of backline. So Lacroix, Burn and Virgil van Dijk. And I'm going to update, by the way, one of the graphics to correct that. Fernandes, Foden, Semenyo, Minter, Voltemada, Haaland and Welbeck. And there on the bench, it's not looking great, but I don't need it to be. The bench boost was already used. I think Haaland will be my captain, so a bit boring there. With the triple captaincy, my recommendation is to use it in Gameweek 17 when Haaland faces West Ham. I said that in Spanish earlier to a viewer, and I've been saying that quite consistently after that blank against Leeds. So yeah, those that did so were very unfortunate to say the least. But Yeah, I'm just going to quickly, update one of these graphics. We do have just over an hour left until the deadline, so let's be sure to lock in our squads as soon as possible and use our remaining transfers before Game Week 16 becomes a thing with 5 available moves at our disposal. So let's do that as well. Okay. So we'll get back to your questions in just a couple of minutes' time. And I think a lot of the graphics and stuff you're going to see next will answer some questions in the process. Okay, so the next thing I want to show you is the game week analysis. So with the scoreline predictions coming up first. So Aston Villa 0, Arsenal 1 in the early kickoff. Bournemouth 2, Chelsea 2. Everton 1, Nottingham Forest 1. Man City 3, Sunderland 1. Newcastle 2, Burnley 0. Tottenham 2, Brentford 2. Leeds 1, Liverpool 2. Brighton 3, West Ham 2. Fulham 1, Crystal Palace 1. And Wolves 0, Man United 1 on Monday night. That's what I've gone for at this moment in time. And I'm going to be highlighting the same squad to target once again in West Ham. And I think this striker could have some joy. I mean, that's kind of what you always expect when a player comes up against West Ham. And hopefully Danny Welbeck does the business. The blue circles indicate the chance conceded by West Ham this season. And the heat map is from Danny Welbeck, his touches for the Premier League campaign. So Newcastle are top of the clean sheet odds with a 51% probability. Man City are second. Arsenal are third, facing Aston Villa away. Brighton, Everton, and Man United complete the top 6, and Sunderland are last. Some of these figures have also changed over the last couple of days, and they're all updated in this stream. Last but not least is going to be the top 10 captains, and after this I'll be going through the predicted lineups. But in 10th spot, I've gone for Daniel Munoz against Fulham away. Palmer is 9th up against Bournemouth. Saka is 8th against Aston Villa, and Salah and Welbeck just about miss the top 5, which comprise of Voltemada, Fernandes, Foden, Mbeumo, and Erling Haaland. But you could certainly change a few of those pieces a little bit between those United and Man City midfielders in Fantasy Premier League. So now let's go to the lineups, so you can have a bit of an insight into, what I believe. What the blood clot? Okay, yeah. Here you go. Raya in goal. Timber, Saliba, Hincapié, and Calafiori. I am very concerned about Saliba versus Ben White starting. So if that's the case, we could see Timber at centre-back. But I think Arsenal would like to have Timber up against Rodgers. I think that would be a big factor. So Zubimendi, Eze, and Rice in the midfield. Saka, Martinelli, and Marino. But I also had an inkling or a sort of debate in my head that Odegaard could start where Eze is, and Eze would start as the left winger. That's another possibility. Trossard and Saliba should be back fairly soon. If not against Aston Villa, it will be against Wolves at home in, the next week. So Aston Villa are up next here. Marco Bizot could start in goal with Cash, Konsa, Pau Torres and Luka Dean, Kamara and Onana, Rodgers, Tielemans, McGinn, and Ollie Watkins. That's what I've gone for. Moving on to Bournemouth, Petrovic, Jimenez, Diakite, and Senesi, who is now back from suspension, Troffer, Scott, Tavernier, Brooks, Cliver, Semenyo, and Evanosson. So Tyler Adams is suspended, and that's why I think Tavernier could play in a deeper position. Moving on to Brentford, I think they'll stick with a 4-2-3-1, but don't be surprised to see a back 5. Kelleher, Coyote, Collins, Vandenberg, and Ajer, with Henderson, Yarmouk, Dango Ouattara, Damsgaard, Schade, and Igor Thiago. Brighton will likely go for Verbruggen, Veltman, Van Heck, Dunk, Kadioglu, Belieber, Hinshelwood, Minter, Gomez, De Kuyper, and Danny Welbeck. Burnley is another team that could start a 4-2-3-1 with Dubravka, Walker, Ekdal, Estev, Hartman, Cullen, Florentina Luis, Bryn Larson, Ogochukwu, Anthony, and Fleming. But don't be surprised to see Lau Foster start as well. With Chelsea, Sanchez, Gusto, Fofana, Chalobah, Cucurella, Reece James and Enzo Fernandez. Moises Caicedo is still suspended. His return will be in Game Week 17 against Newcastle away, Esteval and Neto on the wings, and Cole Palmer just behind Joao Pedro. Crystal Palace will likely go for Henderson, Richards, Lacroix, and Mark Gay, with Munoz and Mitchell as the wing-backs, Wharton and Hughes in the midfield, Kamada, Yeremy Pino, and Mateta as the front three. With Everton, Pickford, Patterson, Tarkovsky, O'Brien, Mikalenko, Dewsbury Hall, Garner, Indai, Alcaraz, Grealish, and Barry. They've got 2 suspensions in Irigbonum and Idrissa Gana Gay, so that's why they might shuffle things around a little bit. Moving on to Fulham, Leno, Tete, Anderson, Bassi, Sessegnon. It could be Sandberg with Iwobi in central midfield, Samuel Chukwueze on the left, Harry Wilson on the right, and Josh King just behind Raul Jimenez. Their fixtures look quite decent. Leeds United could keep the same sort of formation, this back 5 that beat Chelsea 3-1 up against Liverpool at home. If Calvert-Lewin is available, he should start up top alongside Nemecha, but I personally don't think both of them will start. It's going to be one or the other, and Okafor could play the other striker role, with Perry in goal, Bogle, Rodon, Strauch, Bjol, and Goodmanson, Tanaka, Ampadu, and Stack all in the midfield. Moving on to Liverpool, Alisson, Bradley, Kanate, Van Dijk, Robertson, Gravenberch, McAllister, Salah, Szoboszlai, Wirtz, and Ekitike. That's what I've currently gone for. And with Man City, Donnarumma. Okay, this one, yeah, with the right back, Matheus Nunes is the one I would go for. That's something I didn't change. Ruben Diaz, Cavadio, 8 Nuri, Nico Gonzalez, Bernardo Silva, Reinders, Foden, Doku, and Haaland. So I would change that Kusanov pick, but don't be surprised to see rotation there from the citizens. With Man United, Lamens, Yoro, De Ligt, Shaw, Casemiro, Fernandes, Amad Diallo, and Dallo, Mbumo, Cunha, and Xerxes. Mount is another possible starter, and with both yellow flag players, if they're available, they will start, but that all depends on those fitness tests. Newcastle United are arguably the most appealing this week, and long-term they've got excellent fixtures. Ramsdale in goal, Livramento, Chow, Byrne and Hall, Miley, Bruno Guimaraes, Jolington, Elanga, Gordon, and Nick Voltemada, who went up in price recently. Nottingham Forest will go for Sell, Savona, Milenkovic, Murillo if he's fit, and Williams, Sangari and Anderson in the midfield, Hutchinson, Hudson-Odoi, Gibbs-White, and Igor Jesus. Sunderland could go for a back 5 again. They slightly tweaked their system against Liverpool, but Rufs, Hume, Mukiele, Ballard, Alderete, and Renildo Mandava, Talbi, Xhaka, Siddiqui, Lefay, and Isidore should come back into the side. Moving on to Tottenham, Vicario, Borro, Romero, Van der Ven, Spence, Paulinho, Bentancur, Kudus, Bergval, Odeber, and Colomwani, but I would have some concerns about the left winger spot. I think that could be Xavi Simons instead. With West Ham, Areola, Wan-Bissaka, Todibo, Kilman, Diouf, Magassa, Potts, Bowen, Fernandes. Paqueta is now back from suspension again, and Callum Wilson will start up front. And last but not least is Wolves. Johnston, Mosquera, Agbadu, and Totti Gomez. Joao Gomez is suspended, so I think Krejci could start in the midfield alongside Andre, Chichawa, and also Wolf as the wing-backs, Arias, Bellegarde, and Strand Larsen, who went down in price overnight. So that was quite extensive. I think, like I said before, the Kusanov pick I would change to Matheus Nunes for Man City, but I think the rest is basically what I believe at this moment in time. So I'm going to go back to my FPL squad and also put a poll out very soon because a transfer could happen over the coming minutes. Thank you, Paredes. Good to see you. Hi, Dylan. I own Pope and Dubravka. Bench boost 18 in plans. Do you think I can make it with Ramsdale? Yeah, I think so, because Pope is out for several weeks, and with such a quick turnaround throughout December, yeah, Ramsdale should be in goal for Gameweek 18, unless Pope makes a big step up in his recovery. So that could work fairly well. What are the goalkeeper in mind to have both long-term and bench boost 18 in mind? Yeah, Ramsdale wouldn't be a long-term solution per se, so going into 2026, I'm not sure if Ramsdale would, be the solution. So that's why I just recommend Robert Sanchez to have that Chelsea coverage defensively, and it's a nice entry point. Sanchez will start more than 30 games. There will only be the odd rotation here and there with Jorgensen. So that is the goalkeeper I would go for. Thoughts on Kadioglu or Harry Wilson punt over the next few weeks? I'd be more keen on the Kuiper over Kadioglu, even though the Turkish left-back seems to be a bit more secure in terms of minutes, but the Kuiper playing so advanced is very appealing. Yeah, Harry Wilson has his moments, but the Fulham player I'm looking at is Chukwueze. I think he's looked very impressive. He has returned in 3 consecutive games. So, yeah, I think Chukwueze and maybe the Kuiper would be the ones. I just covered that, mate. I think Rice will start. Sign either Minter or Dewsbury Hall. Minter. Wolves is the only team to target. To a certain extent, I think Burnley could be targeted as well at times. Is buying Van Dijk a big trap? He's been fairly decent, all things considered. It's just Liverpool aren't keeping many clean sheets, but he's getting DEFCON. He can give you at least 3-4 points as a baseline score. Ultimately, you want a little bit more from him, but I think he's a decent one. What's up, Dylan? Sell Semenyo, should I? Depends who you can buy. If you can get Foden, then I'd recommend it, but yeah, I think Semenyo is a sell in certain situations. Hi, Dylan. Is Semenyo a priority to sell? I wouldn't say it's a priority, but I would go to Foden, yeah. It just depends on the rest of your squad and what other moves might appeal to you, or even to me, but I don't know the context. Thoughts on getting Florentino, but would mean owning 3 cheap Burnley players. Well, he's very good for DEFCON. That has kind of faltered a little bit, but I think Florentino Luis is a decent pickup in the midfield as your 5th option and 8th attacker, if you will. Hey, Dylan, start Anderson or Thiago? Thiago. Tottenham away is... I think Tottenham are actually more difficult when you face them at home. But yeah, Tottenham are 19th in the Premier League table for home matches, so I'd go for Thiago. He's fixture-proof anyway. Sunderland will give City a hard time this game week. Yeah, but I couldn't care less unless they actually get a result. Bench 2 from Munoz, Van der Ven, Lacroix, Timber, Ndai, Kudus, Marino, Minter, Foden, Mateta, Igor, Thiago. I'd bench Van der Ven and possibly Marino. As good as he has been, I think one of Kudus or Marino on the bench alongside Van der Ven. Thank you very much, FPL Diamond. Like, share, subscribe, support your quality channel as you continue to get brilliant content on a consistent basis. Much appreciated, mate. Dr. Dylan, should I do Minter and Bruno, Guimaraes for Ndai and Semenyo for -4? I like both transfers in a lot. But, yeah, for a -4 hit, selling Ndai and Semenyo, I'm going to say no. That's just a gut feeling of mine. Thank you, Harrison James, and also to Marcus L. I appreciate the kind words. Who's the best goalkeeper under 5.5? Robert Sanchez. Ahmed puts his squad. You got Lucas Perez, okay. You've got 2 Brighton defenders. You've got the Kuiper and Van Heck. You're starting one of them. Okay, so there are certain players that I'd be a bit unsure about. So long-term the Kuiper and Mateus Cunha, but you definitely don't sell Cunha this week. I think he's a nice one-week punt against Wolves, but yeah, he has been poor this season. So for now, I think you're good. Ultimately, if you got a free transfer, then you want to use it and maybe bolster your team in the process. But I don't know how much money you've got in the bank, how many free transfers. That would also help, I think, in determining the best course of action. But I think for this week specifically, you are in a good position. But long-term, I would highlight certain players like Lucas Perez, Yeremy Pino, the Kuiper and Cunha as sellable. Yeah, exactly. And Foden could rise again tonight, according to livefpl.net. It depends, Jam Toast, on who you're selling, but I'd rather not take the hit if you can. Hey, Dylan, Ndai to Bruno Guimaraes for free. Yes. Carlos says, no sé ninguna ficha hasta ahora. Triple Captain Gameweek 17 o la jornada 17. Bench Boost la jornada 16. Free hit para la jornada 19. Creo que sí, está bien. Usando el Bench Boost en la jornada 16 con 5 transferencias. Tiene sentido. Sí, me parece bien, digo la verdad. Pero... así, Wildcard 19. Free hit. Ah, entonces, ¿qué? ¿Usarías el free hit ahora? No sé tu equipo, así que lo hace difícil, pero creo que es la mejor opción para vos. Hacerlo como elegiste, en ese orden. Hi, Dylan. Semenyo to Marino, Gordon, Foden, or Mateta to Voltemada. Yeah, I think Rice will be available. I covered that earlier. If you just rewind a little bit, you'll see all the predicted lineups for every single Premier League team. Yeah, Gordon not for me. 1 week punt, yeah, sure, but not beyond that. I think there'll be rotation between him and Barnes. He's got 0 goals and 0 assists for the Premier League campaign as well, Anthony Gordon. So yeah, Semenyo to Foden is my recommendation overall. Timber versus Gravenberch. Timber. My defense is Virgil, Gay, Timber, Anderson. Should I start 3 in the back? I would consider starting Gravenberch over Anderson, but not over Timber. Or bench Gravenberch and start Gay, Virgil, Timber, Anderson. Yeah, so that's covered. Already have Foden, Semenyo to whom? 7.8 in the bank. Yeah, that's a difficult one. 7.8 in the bank. Bruno Guimaraes, Minter are 2 of the top recommendations I've made. I think that's where I would go. Dylan, are Isak and Wirtz too radical a signing? Too radical? Well, they were good signings on paper for Liverpool. As for your FPL team, I wouldn't go there. I mean, Wirtz still hasn't got a goal contribution in this competition, so not for me. Is Semenyo the FPL player that goes hype in early season and out of breaks last month? Well, he had a great start, but yeah, injuries. I mean, he dipped in form just a little bit before his injury, so it's been a tough time for him, but yeah, it happens, right? I mean, he's been very underwhelming recently, but he has some credit in the bank from what he did early in the campaign. Hi, Dylan, would you do Enzo or Ndai to Minter? Long term, I'd rather keep Enzo because Ndai's after the African Cup of Nations next week, so yeah, Ndai to Minter. Hey, Dylan, pick 2 out of Richards, Keane, Alderete, and Joachim Anderson. I'd pick Richards and probably Joachim Anderson. I don't think Keane starts. Should I just play Dubravka for 1 more week and bring in Ryan next week? Best defence in the league, and I don't have that headache anymore of only 1 Arsenal defence. Mateta to Thiago or Achimpong to Van Heck? Yes, I would wait another week and get Raya. I think he's the best goalkeeper in the game. As for your other transfers, looks solid. Van Heck went up in price overnight to 4.5. Thiago is one of the best strikers to buy this week and long term, so yes, looks good. I would prefer triple captaining Haaland in 17 when he faces West Ham at home. Carlos says free at 18. Okay, yeah. Once again, I think use the website fpl.team, but your plan looks very solid, I think. Wait, should I sell Semenyo or Ndai? I'd rather sell Ndai. I mean, he's going to be out, because of the African Cup of Nations, so that's quite clear. If AFCON players get early release, will the transfer strategy be different? Well, let's wait and see what happens when it comes to it, right? But ultimately, yeah, if they're released earlier than we expect or whatever it may be, then yes, it will obviously shift our priorities. But we've got 5 free transfers to deal with it. And, in some cases, you might not have that many players featuring in the African Cup of Nations. I mean, in my case, I've only got Ndai, essentially. Even if I buy Minter, he's not going to feature in that tournament. Semenyo's not going to either. So, yeah. When we get to that, obviously we'll adjust and adapt. But ultimately, that would play a part. But by Gameweek 16, I'd start selling these African players. Mateta to Voltemada for 1 week punt. Yeah, I don't mind that as a 1 week punt for free, definitely. It's possible, Wally. I covered my, team selection graphics earlier. The thing is with Semenyo, if I sell him, it's going to be to one of Bruno Guimaraes, Minter, or even a 1 week punt like Cunha. As for Ndai, I could also go to Minter just by selling Ndai, right? But yeah, with Semenyo, I am considering selling him. I'm going to put a poll out very soon. -4 to get Chow and Van Heck. I'm not so sure about that. It also depends on who you're selling. But yeah, it's not worth a -4 hit in my opinion. Thank you, Don. I appreciate that. Sell Gakpo or Semenyo for Foden. I'd still rather keep Semenyo long term. So my answer is sell Gakpo. Mateta or Thiago this week? Thiago. Chalobah and Pedro or Senesi and Semenyo? So yeah, go all in on Bournemouth or Chelsea. I'd lean towards the Chelsea route. Hey Dylan, Ndai to Bruno Guimaraes for free? Yes. Would you do a -4? Senesi and Mateta to Burn and Thiago? I like the transfers in a lot, but I would just do Senesi to Burn for free and save Mateta to Thiago for another day. Sí, está bien tu equipo y creo que es mejor hacerlo como lo dijiste vos, pero todos los jugadores de FPL van a tener 5 transferencias en la jornada 16 por AFCON. Así que lo único que te puedo decir es usar todas tus transferencias ahora. No recomendaría usar hits o tomar un -4, digamos, pero creo que vale la pena usar todas tus transferencias y después hacer eso de el bench boost en la jornada 16, triple captain en la jornada 17, free hits en la jornada 18 y el wildcard sin comodín. Sin comodín, el comodín en la jornada 19. Me confundí entre el comodín y el sin límites de UCL Fantasy. I have 2 transfers if I roll them this week. How many shall I have in Gameweek 16? Don't roll. That's what I'm saying now. I've said it in Spanish just now and I said it in English many times in this stream. No matter what you do, everyone gets 5 free transfers in Gameweek 16. So my advice is to use up all your transfers now and you can look for 1-week punts and stuff like that. And then in 16, you're going to get 5 free transfers. Who to start? What? So yeah, Bayram, Van Dijk, Calafiori, O'Reilly, Lacroix, Semenyo, Minter, Rogers, Eze, Mbumo, Joao Pedro, Haaland, Thiago. 1 free transfer -4, Semenyo for Foden or Semenyo for Bruno Guimaraes for free. I'd just go for the free route and buy Bruno Guimaraes. Start Senesi or Van Dijk? Van Dijk. Semenyo or Enzo? Very close. I'd lean towards Semenyo. Hey Dylan, love your work. Have Semenyo and Ndai. Want to get rid of one. Who do I go for? 0.1 in the bank. Was thinking Barnes or Doku. Yeah, very much appreciated. I'm also in the same boat. I'm looking to sell one of Semenyo or Ndai. I'm not entirely sure about Barnes or Doku. So with Barnes, he might not even start. It could be Anthony Gordon. That's a concern I'd have. But if you back Barnes to start, he is a nice 1-week punt. And I would prefer him over Doku in the case that he does start. But I also talked about Bruno Guimaraes, Minter a lot in this stream. I think those two and Cunha would spring to mind for a 1-week punt, essentially, in the case of the Brazilian. I have Doku. Is it worth backing him or switching to Foden? If you can switch to Foden for free, I would recommend it, but yeah, it's a difficult one because it could be Doku's time to shine now against Sunderland and Foden's the one blanking. This can happen, but in the current form Foden is in, I think he's worth including. Duarte says, what's the ideal gaming to free hit? So yeah, you put your team in. So in general, when people ask this, I can't say, definitively Gameweek 16 is the best because for others it might be a little bit different, but I would consider using in 16 personally, even in your situation. Enzo to Minter. My midfield is Enzo, Bruno Fernandes, Semenyo, Saka, Anderson. I like Minter, but I don't see it as a massive upgrade, to be honest. This week it looks much better on paper, but Enzo could definitely do something against Bournemouth. Best defender for 5 million, but not from Crystal Palace. Chow. He cost 5 million from Newcastle, highest in the clean sheet odds. Should I upgrade Richards to a better Crystal Palace defender? I would only go to Munoz if you're doing that. If you wildcard next week, our 5 AFCON transfers could be abandoned immediately. No, you will still have 5 free transfers. They will not reset. I think Gordon will start. Yeah, and if you rewind my stream, you're going to see all my predicted lineups, and Gordon was there. Sell Semenyo or Rice for Phil Foden? I'd rather sell Semenyo long term. Choose 2 to start of Rangers, Richards, Ellie Anderson, and Ndai. Ndai and... It's very close. But I would lean towards Elliot Anderson. Reinders or Anderson? Anderson for me. Foden captain over Haaland. Based on the recent form, there's certainly a debate, but I'm going to stick with Haaland. Is O'Reilly playing? No, I'd start O'Reilly in this situation because Rodon, the alternative, isn't particularly great. I think Liverpool will still score. Having said that, in my predicted lineup, and remember, it's only a prediction, I could be wrong, I've put Ait-Nouri in there. So it's just a possible rotation we could see, and O'Reilly saved for the Champions League. Bench 2, Rice, Lacroix, Anderson, O'Reilly. That's a very close one. I would bench, I think, O'Reilly. And the other one would be... Declan Rice. All right, thanks, Dylan. Great for every game week. I appreciate it. Mateta to Thiago or Semenyo to Minter? Good question. I would rather go for Thiago. Haaland triple captain in 17, as I've mentioned a few times. Do you think Lewis Hall is a better transfer than Burn? I prefer Burn and Chow. to cover Newcastle. So no is the answer. Start Rangers or Joao Pedro? Joao Pedro. Bench 1, Timber, Van Dijk, O'Reilly, Rice. I would consider benching O'Reilly here. Saka to Marino to free up funds. But what are you going to do with those extra funds? And when are you going to make that transfer? My guess from what you've told me is that you want to use your last free transfer. So you're buying in Marino this week, and you're not going to use up the rest of the funds until Game Week 16 and beyond. So that could work, but I don't think Marino will start week in, week out. Gyökeres is now back. Arsenal have a congested schedule in December. So Marino won't start every game up top like he has done for the last couple of game weeks. I wouldn't do this. As much as I like Munoz, I wouldn't buy him in for a -4 hit against Fulham. Yeah, that's not my name, James, but thank you very much. Joao Pedro to Welbeck or Voltemada? I would go to Voltemada. No, it's not worth it. I mean, Thiago's still one of the best forwards in the game, so no. Burn or Chow? I'd lean towards Chow, but they're both solid choices. Heated Gaming says, my team is Raya, Timber, Munoz, Gay, Bruno, Guimaraes, Semenyo, Enzo, Rogers, Haaland, Voltemada, Igor Thiago, with Marino, Rodon, and Senesi on the bench. I've got 1 free transfer and 0.9 in the bank. Any advice? Yeah, 1 free transfer. So, how to use this? There is a case to do Igor Thiago to Welbeck, but it's not mandatory or like a massive upgrade. I would consider Rogers out here, and going to Minter might work very well for you. Foden captain over Haaland. I just covered that a few minutes ago, Ashwin. He's in great form. There's a case to be made, but I'm going to go for Haaland personally. You saw my Campsy list as well in my team selection and also today. Van Dijk, Richards, James Semenyo, bench 1. Reece James. Foden most transferred in player right now. Semenyo most transferred out. Yeah, funny things can happen when, you know, we see that transfer activity. Hey, Dylan, how are you doing? All good, Ian? What about you? I hope Foden will start. I'm not willing to do any transfers. If I do, maybe just 2. Look, sometimes making no transfer is the best thing to do, but because of the African Cup of Nations and everyone getting 5 transfers in Game Week 16, no matter what you do, I think it's worth using your transfers and chasing 1-week punts because that could result in a massive swing in your favour. Yeah, I think it's very likely that Rice will start. He even said after the game against Brentford that he should be available at the weekend. Players typically say this, to be fair, but he's so important to Arsenal, and if he missed out, it would be a massive blow. Richards or Van Dijk? Van Dijk. I smell Pep roulette this game week. Yeah, don't even mention that. I mean, UCL Fantasy, yeah, Pep did me dirty there. I put 1-1 between Nottingham Forest and Everton. Man City face Real Madrid this week. Ratchet says Raya, Richard, Senesi, Virgil, Alderete, O'Reilly, and Dye, and Mbumo, Saka, Minter, Bruno Guimaraes, Mateta, Haaland, Krupi Jr. 1 free transfer, 0.7 in the bank. Would you prioritize selling one of the African Cup of Nations guys or sell Mateta, Senesi? Well, you can sell the African Cup of Nations players in 16. Mbumo is not someone I'd sell now, and I've been very clear about that. The best time to sell Mbumo is Game Week 16. Minter's not going to be heading off to the African Cup of Nations, so you don't have to worry about him. And everyone else in your team, except Ndai, who is a sell in Game Week 16 as well, yeah, the rest are not African, so you're fine from that perspective. I still like Mateta, to be honest with you. But something you might want to consider is Mateta to Igor Thiago, and then you can do Krupi Jr. to Jimenez or Danny Welbeck. I think that looks very solid. You could argue that's too much squad depth, but I think throughout Christmas, having good players on the bench and to be able to rotate and deal with suspensions and injuries, it puts you in a great position, especially if you're looking to bench boost very soon. Best replacement for Semenyo, 7.9 in the bank. Yeah, I've been very consistent on this. Bruno Guimaraes, Minter, those are 2 of the standouts. I think long-term Declan Rice, buying him this week might be a little bit awkward, but I think he'll start. If I still have free hit, wildcard, and bench boost, when should I use it? Yeah, very team dependent, but something I discussed with Carlos in Spanish is to do something like this. Free hit in Game Week 16. bench boost in Gameweek 17. Actually, sorry, free in 16, wildcard in 17, and bench boost in 18. But once again, go to FPL.team, visualize future game weeks, and also plan your wildcard and see how you can build it into a sort of bench boost squad. If you've already got a team that you like for the bench boost, you can use that before the wildcard. So by using the wildcard chip, you are essentially taking money out of your bench and into your starting 11. But try to have a bit of squad depth to manage this December chaos. Reaction stream today. It's possible. I'll let you know. The plan is to do one as things stand, and if people want to see it, then I'm more than happy to make it possible and make it happen. Play Anderson or Dewsbury Hall? Dewsbury Hall. Van Dijk, Richards, James Semenyo, bench one. I covered this way saying James was the answer. We see a lot of centre-backs scoring double points in some of the last game weeks. Who will be at this game week? Hopefully Saliba if he starts, or Hincapié, but yeah, to be honest with you, mate, centre-back scoring a lot of points. Dan Burn or Chow. I think those would be the standouts. Best Newcastle defender for this week. It would be, yeah, between Burn and Chow. I think either one is absolutely fine. I'm going to go for Chow. Joao Pedro to Voltamana for free. Yes. Gakpo, Salah, Haaland, Mateta captain. Haaland. -4 in Die to Minter. Not for a hit, just so in Die for free in Gameweek 16. One free transfer. Should I go for Mateta to Voltamana or Semenyo to Bruno or Van der Ven to Burn? I think long-term, the best move is Semenyo to Bruno. Enzo to Minter. I covered this as well earlier, I believe. I don't see as a massive upgrade, and I like Minter. But if that gives you enough money to make another upgrade, then fine. It's a good transfer, but I just don't see Enzo as a must-sell. Buy Van Heck or Van den Berg? Van Heck. Really stuck on my team, don't want to burn a transfer. What would you do? Ryan, Manyoso, Riley, Timber, Saka, Minter, Doku, Semenyo, Thiago, Mateta, Haaland, King, Jeff, Mukiele, bench. Okay. I think this week, what you might want to consider is Semenyo to one of Bruno Guimaraes. I think, yeah, Semenyo to Bruno Guimaraes or Cunha as a one-week punt. That could work very well. That would be my suggestion. Even with Doku, I don't think that works to go to Bruno Guimaraes, but yeah, otherwise you're looking at something like Timber, but I wouldn't be selling him. O'Reilly. Maybe you could consider O'Reilly to Chow / Dan Burn. That looks fairly decent. And if you don't have much money tied up in Timber, you could sell him and just stick with Raya in goal for this week and then double up on Arsenal again if you want to with the wildcard or 5 free transfers, depending on your situation. Hi, Dylan. Semenyo to Foden for a -4. No, not for me. Hi, bench one of Lacroix, O'Reilly or Timber. I'd lean towards Lacroix on the bench. Ndai to Minter, Semenyo to Bruno Guimaraes or Thiago to Mateta. It's a lot of different scenarios. I'm going to go for... definitely not Thiago. Don't sell him. Ndai to Minter is the one that appeals to me the most. I can afford one of those transfers. I have Welbeck, Haaland, Foden, Rice. Yeah, so that's what I mean. So earlier I talked about the double-ups. No problem with having like a 1 or 2 week punt, like having Voltamada and Bruno Guimaraes against Burnley at home for just this week. Afterwards, though, I'd be a bit less keen about that. The same goes for Brighton, facing West Ham this week, and then I'm less keen on doubling up with Mint and Welbeck. So from that perspective, I do like Bruno Guimaraes as a transfer in, but I'm also considering the players you're selling, and I'd obviously keep Semenyo over and die long term because Semenyo will still be playing in the Premier League throughout January and December. So, yeah, interesting question. I'm in a similar position with the Ndai Semenyo sort of saga. Yeah, just in isolation, I prefer Ndai to Minter. Well, I wouldn't say easily take down City. It's still at the Etihad. If it was at the Stadium of Light, I'd have more confidence in Sunderland getting something, but I think City will get the win. Only as triple captain at this point? Well, Carlos, for example, has every single chip remaining, but you can still make it work, so not necessarily. Hi, Dylan. Start 1. Semenyo, Calafiori, Anderson. Semenyo. Could you bench 2 of Reinders, Ndai, and Richards, please? So just start 1. And who's EA? Elliot Anderson. Yeah, I think that's Elliot Anderson. Okay, so if that's the case, that's start 2. Bench 2. Okay, so I would bench Richards and I think Reinders. Yeah, exactly. Semenyo's not going to AFCON. Change Pope for who? Have 5.5 in the bank and just one free transfer. Robert Sanchez. You could maybe wait another week. So use your transfer elsewhere to downgrade somebody else. And that might give you enough money to go to Raya. If you're able to do that, that is my top recommendation. Otherwise, just buy Sanchez. Pick one to start, Timber, Mateta, or Semenyo. Semenyo. Very close between him and Mateta, to be fair. That could go either way, but Timber would be last on that list. Start one, Richards, Anderson, and Enzo. Enzo. Any updates on Big Gabby? Well, Gabriel could be back in a couple of weeks' time. I heard that update a few days ago, but yeah, Arsenal shouldn't rush him back. Hi, Dylan, best Enzo replacement. I still like Enzo, to be honest, but as mentioned before, Bruno Guimaraes and Minter would be my top two. Well, I got screwed by going against Haaland again, even though I shared the start of how poor Fulham have been versus City. Yeah, maybe there's an element as well of me captaining Haaland because, you know, I want to jinx City, or at least, you know, that's kind of my thinking. I either get points from Haaland, you know, and gain something from it, or, you know, he blanks and I'm still happy because maybe City lose. But yeah, I get what you're saying. Fulham have been woeful against City, and the fact they were, you know, multiple goals down, yeah, it's very telling. They managed to make a game out of it, but yeah, it was crazy. I never expected a 5-4 game. Hi, Dylan. Bench Eze and Timber this week. Depends who you're starting over them, but I don't mind starting an Arsenal player or two this week. Hey, Dylan, who do you think is a better asset, Welbeck or Voltemada? Voltemada. Mateta ain't doing enough for his price tag. The thing is with Welbeck, for example, in my recent wildcard, I talked about going for Welbeck, but that's mainly a budget thing. It's very close between the two, though. And for this week, it's also kind of neck and neck, but I would lean towards Voltemada for game week 15 specifically as well. Do you think Foden will get less minutes? Yeah, I don't think he plays 90. I think he will get less minutes. I have free transfers. Should I sell Szoboszlai, Mateta, and Richards for Munoz, Foden, and Krupi Jr.? Yeah, looks good overall. I'm not a massive fan of having a Krupi Jr. or a third striker who's that cheap. And I think Evanussen will start for what it's worth. So as long as you're not starting Krupi Jr. regularly, it's fine. Thank you, Ignacio. Semenyo for Foden and Mateta for Thiago. Looks good. There are some slight concerns about Foden this week with the minutes, but I think he will start. And yeah, Thiago is definitely worth that inclusion. With money in the bank, would you go Enzo to Foden for a -4? No, I wouldn't. Yeah, that's what I mean. I wouldn't take a -4 hit for that transfer, Enzo to Foden. Not this week. Doku to Foden. For free, yes. Richards or Senesi? Richards. Knight, I think you got a caps lock issue, I'm not going to lie to you, but Bruno Guimaraes is a good captaincy option. He's not in my top 10 list, but he arguably deserves a mention, or at least, you know, being in that sort of, you know, category. I'm still going to stick with Haaland. It's boring, but it worked last week. It didn't work a few weeks before that, but typically, or at least in most cases this season, Haaland has done the job. Bench one, Semenyo, Thiago, Anderson. I'd bench Anderson. Bench one of Mateta, Munoz, Riley, Cucurella. I would bench Cucurella. Okay, so I'm going to put a poll out and then go back to answering questions, and I have covered a lot of graphics as well throughout the course of the stream. Drop a like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, share this video around with those that love FPL and UCL Fantasy. Check all the links in the description. There's my Patreon, the Championships Discord server, FPL Challenge League, Spotify, you name it. It's all there in the description, and there are many ways to engage with the community. But what I'm going to do here is put a poll out, and I'm going to use my only free transfer. And then after this Saturday deadline passes in just about 33 minutes time, I will be, well, everyone's going to get 5 free transfers, and some people might be pulling the plug or pulling the trigger tonight. Understandable, but yeah, there's going to be a lot of price changes over the weekend, that's for sure. So okay, so just going to put this poll out now. Okay, so Ndai Semenyo. So Semenyo to Cunha. With AFCON. One weak punt. Okay, so Semenyo to Cunha, then Ndai to Minta, and Ndai to Bruno Guimaraes. I mean, that could be either one. So yeah. So these are basically my transfer plans. I think with the rest, even like Timber to Munoz, for example, I just don't think it's necessarily worth it. So there we go. I think that would be it. Hi, Dylan. Couldn't be on the stream last week because of exams. No worries. It's good to be back. Yeah, it's good to see you again, and good luck with your exams. Yeah, I think Arsenal can beat Villa, but I said this before, even like with the Chelsea fixture on the horizon, I always saw the Aston Villa game as like the most difficult Arsenal had. So yeah, if Villa got a result, I wouldn't be surprised. They're the most informed team. I think they've got 24 points out of the last 9, 10 matches, and Arsenal have 23. So the two best teams on current form, are going at it. Saliba's going to be back in a couple of days. Essentially what I saw is that if Saliba trained yesterday, he would play against Villa. So I've got him in my predicted lineup, but it all depends on the late fitness test and if there is any risk of injury. But yeah, Arsenal could also play White and Timber simultaneously. They have a lot of options, and Arsenal have been decimated by injuries this season, but they're still finding a way to win in most matches. Morning, Dylan. Do I start Anderson, or what defender do you recommend as a replacement for this week for the same price? Van Heck would be similar. I think that definitely springs to mind. Is it possible to use my last free transfer this week and then play my free hit so the transfer's not wasted? No, if you're playing the free hit this week, you're not going to be able to make a transfer now and, have it go through. So that's not going to work. Omara puts his team, will you play bench boost this week? In this situation, it looks like a decent-ish bench boost. I mean, it's because of Thiago. I think the rest will probably blank, in my opinion. But Thiago could be enough. He can get you a return or two, and you're happy with the outcome. You're surely going to get more points than I did. I'll guarantee you that. But yeah, I'm not entirely sure. And ultimately, with Thiago, I mean, I could see Barnes being benched, in my opinion. So if you feel differently, then, start Barnes. But if it was me, I'd start Thiago over Barnes and basically not bench boost. Not yet, anyway. Do you think Palace keep a clean sheet? No, I don't. Mukiele and Gakpo to Burn and Bruno Guimaraes. Don't have Foden. Should I get him even though he has a bench risk? I think buying Bruno and Burn is fine. With Foden and a lot of Man City assets this week, rotation's possible, and even if they start, they might get reduced minutes. But I think Foden will start. I don't think City will take Sunderland lightly. Sanchez over Bruggen. Sanchez overall. For this week, if you got both of them, Verbruggen, but what I'm saying is if you're buying one in or want them for the long term, it's going to be Sanchez still. Enzo to Bruno Guimaraes or Senesi to Chow/Anderson. My favourite is probably going to be the Senesi transfer to Chow. Yes. Igor Thiago captain, not for me, but he's a decent option in general, even against Tottenham. I think this week could be worth going against Haaland, but no one else is consistent. That's been my issue for the entire season, but at least we saw Haaland blank a few times recently, so there is a bit of hope there. and he's not going to haul in every single game. But yeah, I think Haaland is still the standout against Sunderland. Rangers to start. I've got him in my predicted lineup, and maybe Cherky will start in the Champions League instead, but it's very close. I mean, I would not be surprised to see Rangers bench now, and then he's safe for, midweek. I think with City, it's going to be very difficult to predict over the next 2 weeks, for example. So O'Reilly or Vandenberg for Chow on bench boost? I'd rather sell Vandenberg in this case, but just bear in mind O'Reilly could be benched. I think a lot of predicted lineups still have O'Reilly starting, but I think it could be 8 Nuri, potentially. Risco of Automata or go safe minutes Welbeck for 1 week punt? I prefer Automata in general. And Danny Welbeck was benched the other day, right? But obviously with the injury to the Greek striker, Simas, and it doesn't look good. Yeah, Welbeck should start this weekend, so that looks pretty promising. So, yeah, out of the two, I'm still going to save Automata, but Welbeck is solid. Worth a -4 to do Semenyo to Foden? Not for me. Already bought in Bruno Guimaraes instead of Sarr with the first of 2 free transfers after rolling to 2 last week and 98 points. Who do you think is better to replace between Caicedo and Cucurella with 1 million in the bank? Probably Caicedo, and you can go to Minter. I think that would be a very solid transfer. Yeah, you saw my Campsy list earlier. I'm going to go through graphics again because maybe people are joining late or they didn't see what I said earlier, but I will show it again. City can't defend. Not sure why people buying City defenders. Yeah, well, I said this after the Newcastle game. It became abundantly clear they just concede too many big chances, and their defense is a bit shambolic at times. But we saw improvements when Donnarumma first came in. They were keeping a few clean sheets on the bounce, and even against Arsenal, they played very defensively and stifled the Gunners for most of the game. But yeah, I think recently we've seen how unreliable they are defensively. I had to take a -4 to bring in Foden. I was priced by not making early transfers. Yeah, I get that. I'm not a massive fan of buying Foden for a hit this week, personally. Have Foden already, Salah to Eze, and Joao Pedro to Haaland for the double up. Yeah, I think so. And instead of Eze, remember, there's Minter, Bruno Guimaraes, and a few other midfielders I've discussed throughout the course of this stream and all my content. Good luck as well, Safir. Start Doku or O'Reilly? I would start Doku. Risk of Automata rotation, yeah, that's been covered, mate. No need to repeat it. This week I've used my 2 free transfers to go in Dian Sarr to Foden and Elliot Anderson. Starting 11 is Ryan Munoz, Van der Ven, Senesi, Saka, Foden, Rice, Semenyo, Mateta, Haaland, Thiago, Anderson, first bench. So, yeah, it looks okay. I think that's pretty solid. Not a massive fan of Van der Ven and Senesi this week. So I'm not sure who your other defenders are, but yeah. I think Califari will start, yes. Yo, Dylan, I'm on free hit. Should I play Bruno Guimaraes or Gordon? I would play Bruno Guimaraes. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is just update the C lineup, and I'm going to show you all the graphics one by one, and then I'm going to, yeah, start locking in my team, essentially. But the poll right now is quite close, it seems. So 43% recommend selling in Die to one of Minto, Bruno Guimaraes, and Semenyo, selling him, is in second. So, yeah, that's what ultimately it comes down to. I'll leave that kind of simmering for a little bit longer, and then I'm going to put a poll out about Bruno Guimaraes versus Minter, because I think one of those two will come in to my final FPL squad. So, let's get this up. So in just a few seconds, this will be updated, and I'm going to then go through every single key graphic piece of data so you're well prepared for the Gameweek 15 deadline, especially for those that are tuning in a little bit later. So just going to get this sorted. Okay. All right, let's start rolling. With the FDR, the bottom five include Sunderland, Aston Villa, Chelsea, Wolves, and Crystal Palace. If we look near the top, there's Newcastle, Man City, Liverpool, Man United, and Brighton. With predicted points for the next 6 game weeks, Thiago is 10th, Rice, Szoboszlai, Cunha, and Semenyo just miss out on the top 5. O'Reilly's up there with Fernandes, Saka, Haaland, and yeah, that's it. Haaland's always going to be top of these, especially with no competition really from the other premiums, but maybe we'll see Palmer enter this equation very soon. With potential price changes, I'm just going to refresh it and see if anything has changed. And yes, we're seeing a lot of potential price activity. Foden went up in price yesterday, and he could do so yet again tonight to 8.5 million, if that's the case. Raya, Timber, Gay, Neto, Burn, Bruno Guimaraes, Casemiro, Thiago, Barnes could all rise as well. And this could be a great time to wildcard from a budget building perspective too, especially if certain players go up by 0.2 million before the next deadline, therefore increasing your selling value. With price falls, Jorginho Rota, Tonali, Isidore, Totti Gomez, Semenyo, Vicario, Kirkes, Emi Martinez, who might not even start in the early kickoff, we'll find out very soon, Enzo Fernandez, Pedro Porro, and the list goes on, as certain songs say. Hugo Bueno, Tell, Maguire, Spence, Dorgu, Darlow, Joao Pedro, Coppola, Anthony, Belieber. Yeah, that's a lot of potential price changes, but not all of them will happen, as I always say. So one of these 2 players could come in as part of my only transfer this week. And as I've said multiple times, use up all your transfers because in Game Week 16, so after this deadline passes, you're going to have 5 free transfers because of AFCON. So with Minton, Bruno Guimaraes is very close. I think for this week, I prefer, dare I say, Minter ever so slightly, but Bruno Guimaraes is as solid as they come. He's also got DEFCON potential, which to be fair, Minter's quite solid at for a winger as well. But it's very close separating these 2. The underlying numbers are in favour of Minter, ever so slightly in many of these metrics, but yeah, I think it's definitely a good time to buy either Minter or Bruno Guimaraes this week. With FPL.team, what you see here is essentially, if I buy one of Minter or Bruno Guimaraes, this would be my team in Game Week 16, and then I'd have 5 free transfers, but the plan is to wildcard. The defensive line looks good, but I think the midfield and forward line is a bit lacking, and I could make some big upgrades and buy Igor Thiago, for example. So yeah, the way I've kind of done things recently is to kind of focus on what's right in front of me, because I had the knowledge, and obviously we all knew that we get 5 free transfers in Game Week 16. So it makes sense to think of it in a little bit of a different way compared to usual. So with the best wildcard squad, I think in terms of my budget, I'm now a bit overpriced. So we've had a lot of changes recently. So one thing we could do is downgrade Virgil van Dijk or even Munoz to another Palace defender to make this affordable to the vast majority of people watching. With FPL Challenge, I'll go back to this after the deadline, and I think another defender would be included, maybe even another 2 defenders who are priced at 5 million or below, because they will get double points this week in the challenge called Big Save. So this is something I'll definitely go back to at some stage. So I did show my team selection graphics. I'm not going to, go through that too much again. I think it's probably just best showing you the game week analysis. So that will include clean sheet odds and top 10 captains and scoreline predictions, which you see on screen. So I've gone for 1-0 Arsenal in the early kickoff against Aston Villa, Bournemouth 2, Chelsea 2, Everton 1, Nottingham Forest 1, Man City 3, Sunderland 1, Newcastle 2, Burnley 0, Tottenham 2, Brentford 2, Leeds 1, Liverpool 2, Brighton 3, West Ham 2, Fulham 1, Crystal Palace 1, and Wolves 0, Man United 1. And in terms of the team weakness and the highlighted player, I'm focusing on West Ham once again, and I think this player could come good. He was very frustrating for me on the Game Week 13 free hit and last week, but I think Danny Welbeck will start, and he's got a good chance of hauling against the Hammers. So with the clean sheet odds, Newcastle are top. Man City, Arsenal, Brighton, Everton, and Man United complete the top 6, and Sunderland are in last place, facing Man City away. With the top 10 captains, you could certainly include a few other names in this list, like Minter and Bruno Guimaraes, but I've gone for Munoz, Palmer, Saka, Salah, Welbeck, with Voltemada, Fernandes, Foden, Mbeumo, and Haaland. But yeah, I think one of Bruno Guimaraes or Minter could haul this week, and a lot of luck will be needed to identify the right one for the immediate return. But I think looking a bit at the bigger picture, they are both solid choices for your FPL teams. So I was asked about predicted lineups as well. I'm just going to let it play out really, because I've already kind of dissected this. I'll just cover the main bits. My main concerns with the Arsenal lineup would be Eze starting as a left winger, and then Odegaard in the midfield. Also Saliba against White, and if White were to start, then one of him or Timber would start at centre-back alongside Piero Hincapié. With Aston Villa, Marco Bizot could start over Emi Martinez, who is doubtful to play against his former club, and I think Rodgers, Tielemans, McGinn and Watkins will be the sort of front four, and that means Onana could start in central midfield. Moving on to Bournemouth, Senesi is now back from suspension. I think he'll start. It's either Smith or Jimenez for right back, but the big news here for the Cherries is that Tyler Adams is suspended, so Tavernier could play in a deeper role, which facilitates a front four of Brooks, Cliver, Semenyo and Ivanosen. With Brentford, they made a lot of changes against Arsenal midweek. I think they'll go for essentially their sort of strongest 11, if you will. The main concern is at left back. They can play Rico Henry, Lewis Potter, Ajer, and Aaron Hickey, but I think they'll go for Ajer. We'll see how that ages. With Brighton Hove Albion, Jorginho Rota is still doubtful. If he was available, then he would start, of course, but I think Minter and Welbeck are the standouts from an FPL perspective. And we're now on to Burnley. We'll likely see Ekdal start again, and probably a 4-2-3-1 formation for the Clarets once more. But Fleming, Lau, Foster, that's a bit of a debate going on. They might even start simultaneously. With Chelsea, I think they'll go for practically their strongest 11, and Palmer would enter the equation at the attacking midfield position. Caicedo is still suspended until Gameweek 17 when he faces Newcastle away. But I think Esteval and Neto should start on the wings. Some lineups do have Garnacho though. With Crystal Palace as well, kind of a typical formation, but Ismail Sarr is injured and he's heading off to the African Cup of Nations very soon. I think Kamada, Yeremi Pino and Mateta could be the front three, with Wharton and Hughes in the midfield. So it's now Everton who are covered. They've got 2 suspensions in Eric Bonham and Idrissa Gay. So I think they'll play Patterson at right back, Dewsbury Hall in a deeper position alongside Garner, and then Alcaraz with Ndai, Grealish and Tierno Barry. Fulham have a very promising budget midfielder on their hands in Samuel Chukwueze. He's been in excellent form. He's definitely one I'd highlight as a 5th midfielder. Raul Jimenez is a decent differential and budget forward that you might want to also consider, and that's the starting 11 I've gone for, with Iwobi playing in a deeper position. Moving on to Leeds, they should retain their back 5, which saw them beat Chelsea 3-1. I think one of Nemecha or Calvert-Lewin will start, but not both of them, and they're in fact both orange flagged. So it's not looking too good from that perspective, but if, for example, what I say is true, I think Okafor could play as one of the strikers. Liverpool have a key player coming back in Conor Bradley to provide a bit of security in that right back position. It's a tough call between Ekitike and Isak. The same goes for Wirtz up against Cody Gakpo, but this is the lineup I've gone for. Even Robertson and Kirkes is a debate. And with Man City, Matheus Nunes at right back is what I'd probably opt for, but they also have the option of Rico Lewis, Kusanov, and Man City could heavily rotate here because they've got a massive game in midweek and then Crystal Palace away in Gameweek 16. Moving on to United, there are 2 yellow flag players in the 11 if they're available. De Ligt and Dalot will start, and Mason Mount is another possible starter. Newcastle United have the best chance of a clean sheet, as I just showed you, and I think they'll go for this starting 11 with Tonali being rested and also Harvey Barnes against Gordon. That's always going to be a difficult debate. I think Alanga will also start on the right-hand side. Nottingham Forest have 1 yellow flag player in my predicted 11 in Murillo. If he's not available, it will likely be Morato again, and I think Hudson-Odoi, Hutchinson and Igor Jesus is probably what they'll go for as the front 3, essentially. And Sunderland will likely make 1 change, Isidore coming in to replace Brobby. Tottenham Hotspur, I think the key change I'd highlight here is possibly Xavi Simons over Odegaard, but I think Bergvall will start with Paulinho, Bentancur. Even Richarlison could start alongside Colomwani. We've seen that a couple of times in recent matches. And for the last 2 teams, we've got West Ham. They'll likely go for a 4-2-3-1. Lucas Paqueta is now back from suspension. And Wolves have a few injury problems. Even Krejci is doubtful still, but I think he'll play in the midfield to replace the suspended João Gomez, which is a massive blow against Man United, and they should go for this back three once more. So that essentially covers it. The only change I'd probably make is Odobert to Xavi Simons. Just worth bearing that in mind. But yeah, I'm now going to go back to my FPL squad and also the transfer section and start locking in my final move. But yeah, I'm going to end this poll out first. And 44% have said sell Ndai instead of Semenyo. 45% now. So that's completely understandable. To be fair, yeah, that's something I didn't even fully say. I actually can't afford Bruno Guimaraes for Ndai, but the less said about that, the better. So essentially, this is what I'm going to do this week. So I'm going to put one last poll. Thank you to the moderators for dealing with the spammers, and I will be getting to your questions shortly, especially the members and patrons. You will be prioritized first, and then everything else will be answered in order of submission. So that will be okay. So going to put this poll out and then answer your other questions. And yeah, all the graphics, all the data is all done. What the? That's weird. Okay, so Ndai to Minter. And I think, yes, Semenyo to Bruno G / Minter. That's essentially what it comes down to. These two. Yeah, I can't afford Ndai to Bruno Guimaraes anymore. So. Okay. Let's see what else there is. I don't think we're going to get any early news for Arsenal or Aston Villa, but I will be on the lookout. Do you think Voltemada will start? Yes, I do. Heard that Vissa might play. It would be kind of awkward, though, for Vissa just to start randomly out of, you know, being out for months worth of action. He's not going to the African Cup of Nations, so I'm not sure about that. I think Voltemada won't get the 90, but I think he's still going to start. Semenyo to Gordon, it's just that Gordon's got 0 goals, 0 assists. He's been very poor in the Premier League, and there's rotation there between him and Barnes. Safair says Ndai first sub. Looks good. I like what you've gone for there. Yeah. Very, very solid. Long term, I think you've got a good platform, and you would sell Mbeumo in Gameweek 16. De Kuiper or Van Hecke for free hit? Well, De Kuiper is going to play in a more advanced position. He is also more of a rotation risk. Van Hecke is going to be more likely for DEFCON, and he offers a bit of threat from set pieces, but yeah, it's a close one. I think what you've seen this season is that centre-backs are generally more reliable and preferred to full-backs. So from that perspective, I think Van Hecke is the safer pick. But on a free hit, I would take a punt on De Kuiper. Should I sell Rodon for Chow and bench Gay for Chow? Yeah, I think so. I think Chow is also a long-term solution. He's not just a one-week punt. Liverpool defenders also bad. I don't know if buying Van Dijk early is a trap. Yeah, but you said that before. We had this discussion. I still think Van Dijk is a decent FPL asset. He might not be worth 6 million, but he's going to offer DEFCON more than most players. Sell Salah for Foden and Reinders for Minter? I'd say yes. Bench one of Timber, Semenyo and Anderson. Semenyo for Foden or Mateta for Voltemada? Semenyo for Foden, long term. Which three defenders? I would start Timber, Van Dijk and Richards. Bench one of Anderson from Forest, Richards, Van Hecke. It's a very close one. I'd personally bench Van Hecke based on my prediction. Arsenal back four at the moment. I covered it literally just a few minutes ago. So if Saliba's fit, I think it'll be him and Hincapié with Timber at right back and Calafuri on the left. Reinildo, also another DEFCON player in your team. He hasn't really got it too often though. only in the last game week and a handful of times throughout the season. I can feel the Foden blank coming after more than 1 million people bring him in. I wouldn't mind so much because I've already got massive returns from him. So I think that's where maybe psychology and also certain things play a big perspective in how you view the FPL returns, and also, you know, whether you're kind of warm or maybe cold towards certain players. Sell Salah for Foden and Reinders for Minter. Oh yeah, I just covered that. Morning, Dylan. Start Richards or Virgil? Van Dijk. Start Timber or Richards? I'm currently starting Lacroix over Timber, so it's a similar sort of situation, actually. That's why, if you look at my starting 11, I am considering going for Jurriën Timber. That's something I am looking at, but yeah, based on my scoreline predictions, it is Timber, and I think I will make a change to my starting 11. Yeah, so fair. We'll talk about the World Cup draw afterwards. I mean, I'll be honest, I mainly focused on Argentina, so I don't know all the groups off by heart. And they were taking their absolute time, you know, doing all that stuff. All the points I lost out on Haaland. Yeah, Minter's not off to the African Cup of Nations. No, the same goes for Semenyo. Good morning as well. Senesi to O'Reilly or Joao Pedro to Thiago. Also suggests Richards, Timber, Anderson, Road on bench one. I wouldn't buy O'Reilly this week. It'd be Joao Pedro to Thiago, and benching one of those defenders, Rodon. Yeah, that's what I would do. Okay, so it's time to lock in. Drop a like, subscribe, all that good stuff. I appreciate all your support. Let's get this video to over 150 likes overall. Yeah, it costs nothing, goes a long way to supporting the channel, and I've answered hundreds of questions in the stream and also provided a lot of data and information. But yes, Senesi to Timber, I'd make that move long term. You know, I think an Arsenal defender is the way to go. So Ndiaye to Minter is the winner, but only just. I think some people also like Bruno Guimaraes, but yeah, I think that's what I'm going to end up doing. Ndiaye to Minter, and then it's about finalizing my starting 11. So this is not over yet, and for those that do copy, my recommendation is not to copy. Follow your own path, and yeah, the sky's the limit if you do that. But I'm going to go for Minter in for Ndiaye, and that is done. Because, look, just to show you again, I can't afford Bruno Guimaraes. I would be 0.2 million over budget. So yeah, that kind of makes my decision for me if I just so Ndiaye, which is what I'm doing right now. So Minter in, and there we go. It's done and confirmed. And now it's about optimizing the 11. So I will have the transfer section ready just in case, but I don't see myself taking a hit this week. So all my transfers are used, and everyone gets 5 available transfers after this deadline locks in, heading into Game Week 16 because of AFCON. So let's do this poll. Bench. So Timber. I guess Semenyo would enter this equation as well. Lacroix. And maybe Van Dijk? Yeah, I think those are the 4 players I'd include in this. I don't think I'd include Semenyo in this, to be fair. No. Okay. So we've got less than 4 minutes left until the deadline. Make sure to lock in. I'm going to go for the member questions here. Bench Mateta or Bowen? Reluctantly, I'd bench Bowen. He played very well the other day, but Mateta has incredible underlying numbers. Start Timber or Lacroix? Already have Munoz. I'd start Timber in this situation. I'm having a benching headache. Yeah, same here. Marino and Rogers, who to start? Marino and Chow. Definitely Chow over Gay for me, but that's just my opinion. Hi, Dylan. Would you start Hincapié or Richards? It's very close. I'd possibly, I think start Hincapié. Hi, Dylan. Hope you're doing well. Should I start Gakpo or Stack? Gakpo, but there is a chance he doesn't start. Semenyo to Foden or Newcastle mid, or Mateta to Voltamato, or both for a -4. Not for a -4, no. I would just stick with Semenyo to Foden long term. Start Enzo or Thiago. Thiago. Caicedo replacement, depends on your budget, but Minter would be great. If not, Elliot Anderson. Start Semenyo or Senesi. Semenyo, yeah. So right now, 37% of you have gone for Van Dijk. Timber's second. Yeah, this is a very balanced poll. It goes to show it's not easy. This is a very tough benching dilemma, and I've only got over a minute left to make this move. But yeah, benching an Arsenal defender isn't great, even against Villa away, who have been very solid. I would start Mateta over Calafiori there for Dani, Semenyo to Foden or Bruno Fernandes. I think long-term Fernandes is still the better pick. I think Salah will start, but then again, I thought he'd start the last two, and that was wrong. Captain Bruno or Foden? I've ranked Foden slightly higher, but that is definitely interchangeable. Yes, I'm going to lock it in. It's just a benching dilemma, really. Yeah, I think De Kuiper starts. It's all been covered, earlier. Bench one. Well, I've got the same conundrum, but you got Van de Ven, so I'm going to say Van de Ven on the bench. Hi, Dylan. Please bench one. Semenyo, Joao Pedro, Gakpo. This might be an unpopular opinion, but I would consider benching Gakpo. That's the way I feel about it. Yeah. You might argue that it's a bit kind of counterproductive to start two attackers facing each other, but it's not as bad as starting, let's say, Senesi and Enzo Fernandez, for example. But that would be my take on it. I'm not even sure if Gakpo starts, but we'll see. It is a very tough call. I think there are some big benching dilemmas this week. The thing with Van Dijk, I think he's going to give DEFCON, so he can get 3-4 points, but I then look at the clean sheet potential, and I think that's what kind of puts me off. So I think I'm going to keep Timber on the bench, which is crazy. I'll be honest with you, it's crazy, but maybe my Arsenal sort of, side of it is playing a part. I don't want to jinx during Timber. So yeah, I think if I were to do this, it's either Lacroix or Timber, and I'm just going to stick with this, I think. But Timber will certainly come back into my thoughts very soon. So that is my final team. Haaland captain, Bruno as the vice. I bought in Minter, and yeah, we are now locked in. So the plan is the wildcard in Game Week 16. And yeah, we've got 5 free transfers now. So enjoy. Thank you to those that voted, for those that sent in super chats, and all the members, subscribers, and likers. I appreciate your feedback. And yeah, Van Dijk was the one winning this poll to bench. Timber is the one I ended up benching. So we'll see how that turns out. So it's going to be very interesting. Leeds only failed to score at home once against Newcastle in August. Yeah, look, I backed Leeds to score. And look, if you look at my scoreline predictions, I went for 1-0 Arsenal, but I was also considering a 1-1. So yeah, Villa's going to be very difficult. And as good as Arsenal are defensively, this is one of the toughest games they'll have all season. Thank you very much, Awale. Subscribe to the channel and like the stream too. I appreciate it. Start Enzo or Elliot Anderson? I would start Enzo. Start Richards or Chalobah, just to be clear, by the way, the deadline has passed, but yeah, from these two, I would start Richards. We are locked indeed. Based on Van Dijk's performances, not surprised the vote goes for Van Dijk to be benched. Yeah, exactly. The thing is, what kind of crossed my mind is I wouldn't be surprised to see Van Dijk score this week, and I think his ceiling is higher than Timber, which might sound a bit weird, but that's still my opinion. So I back my gut. We'll see how it goes. Raya, Munoz, James, Chow, Mbumo, Saka, Rogers, Minter, Haaland captain, Igor, Thiago, Voltamato, O'Reilly first bench. Lil Dicey got a big green last 2 game weeks, so can afford it till the free transfers. Yeah, same here. The last 2 weeks have been very impressive, and definitely some big momentum. And you've got a solid platform for this week. Yeah, James versus O'Reilly is a bit of a headache. Yeah, O'Reilly could be benched this week, but so could any Man City player, except Haaland, dare I say. Good luck, Lucas, and the same goes to Stanis. Thank you for your super chat and your kind words and contributions. Good luck, Genius Gamer and Safair, and also to Punjabi. Locked, and Nerves and Chaos Boys begins. Yes, there's going to be a lot of chaos, it looks like. Bench one of Timber, Van Heck, Anderson, Forest. Deadline passed, and I benched Anderson. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I told you Van Heck You asked the question a few minutes ago, and I answered it with like 2-3 minutes to spare, if I'm not mistaken. Wait for Van Dijk to blank and Timber score bullet header. I don't really mind that if I still manage to get a green arrow and Arsenal win. Ended up captaining Bruno again. We'll see how that goes. Yeah, good luck. Wolves United is a bit of a weird fixture. It's typically low scoring, but this could be a bit different. United surely will have chances, and I think Bruno, Mbumo, Cunha look very appealing. Diogo says, I'm sorry, Dylan, but I feel like a Timber haul is definitely coming, and I don't have him. If it means Arsenal win, so be it. Any Newcastle mid to bring in the future? Bruno Guimaraes, he's the best one. Thank you as well, Zero. Good luck. And to Sudindra as well. And to Easy, Punjabi, all of you. Thank you very much. Arthur says, had a dilemma this week. Use 2 free transfers and have Van der Ven, Rice and Mateta, or take a -4 and have Van Heck, Ndai and Voltemada. Went for the former to avoid the hit and get rid of Ndai. Yeah, I think that's the right call. It is close though. The -4 looks very appealing. But yeah, I think the free transfers and getting rid of Ndai is the way to go. Duarte says, made huge mistakes this season. Didn't go free hit in Game Week 12 like everyone else. I wouldn't say everyone used a free hit in 12, but there were maybe a substantial amount of people on Twitter and YouTube who did it. Went in Mbumo captain last week instead of Haaland, almost a 50-point swing. Yeah, it can be brutal sometimes. Seemingly a 50-50 call, it can go the other way. I mean, Haaland against Fulham away, no one expected that sort of massive return. Also for Foden and for that sort of 5-4 thriller. You know, football is unpredictable at times. I disagree with Van Dijk having higher ceiling. Timber got a brace and assist against Leeds. Yeah, but that's what you're saying, right? Timber got that big call against Leeds. That's who Van Dijk is playing up next, even though it is at Ellen Road and not at home like Timber had. But yeah, look, don't get me wrong. Timber is the better FPL asset. And in basically most game weeks, I'm going to start Timber. But despite my 1-0 scoreline prediction, I'm trying to manifest an Arsenal win. I think Villa are a very good team. And at Villa Park, they can cause anybody problems. We should give Dylan Peace Prize for able to keep the stream calm. I appreciate it, but it's also the moderators who do a great job. Big thanks for the advice as always. Best of luck over the weekend. The same goes to you. Thank you very much. Villa 0, Arsenal 1. Bournemouth 1, Chelsea 2. Everton 1, Forest 0. Man City 2, Sunderland 2. Newcastle 2, Burnley 0. Spurs 1, Brentford 1. Leeds 2, Liverpool 2. Brighton 2, West Ham 1. Fulham 0, Palace 1. And Wolves 0, United 1. Yeah, good scoreline predictions there. Thank you, Safair. Dylan deserves the key of the city. Which city are we talking about? Hopefully not FPL. If Salah gets benched again, will Salah go out in January? Saudi is a favourite option for him. No, I don't think so. Not in January. Crazier things have happened, I guess, but not for me. Thank you, Awali, and likewise, all the best for Game Week 15 and beyond. How did Haaland even get that second assist? It wasn't intentional, it hit his head. Well, look, FPL has all its rules and stuff, and you can certainly argue some of the decisions at times, that's for sure. Hi, Dylan. Bench 1, Minter, Mbumo, Anderson, Mateta, Enzo, Foden. Well, the deadline has passed, but I would have probably benched probably Anderson, yeah. Who is a differential captain for this game week? Voltemada, Bruno Guimaraes, like they're very left field captaincy picks, I'd say. Yeah, Danny Welbeck as well. Those are massive differential captains. Even a Foden or, I guess, Fernandes to a certain extent, they would be not differential, but they are still different. Haaland's effective ownership will be quite high. But yeah, in terms of differentials, I've named a few. Can't wait for the Villa-Arsenal game. This fixture's given us some amazing games in recent times, especially at Villa Park. Come on, you Gunners. Yeah, it's going to be very difficult as well. Very challenging games to predict. Because, you know, you might have a season where Villa do the double over Arsenal, and then you have a season where Arsenal do the double over Villa, but a very balanced matchup in recent times, yeah. Fair enough, Mr. Parky. Slot will go out before Salah ends playing for Liverpool. Well, yeah, Slot's still on thin ice, and I'm very surprised by the drop-off. I thought Liverpool would finish third. Obviously, with all the hype after the transfers and stuff, I thought, yeah, like they look like the team to beat, but even after they won the first 5 games, a lot of us could tell something wasn't quite right. Thoughts on the World Cup draw? Yeah, I haven't fully focused on it. I saw that there were some really easy groups on paper. I was mainly focusing on Argentina, to be honest. So I'll talk more about this, I think, in future videos and live streams. But yeah, my main focus was Argentina, and the rest was kind of Not too relevant to me. I just know that Argentina could play Portugal. They love scripting that sort of potential matchup between those two. Were you surprised Voltemada didn't take the penalty? Well, to a certain extent. I mean, Gordon is the main penalty take in general, then it's Voltemada. So, yeah, you'd think Voltemada would have taken it, but yeah, these things can happen. Do you think Foden will start or blank after the pressure of 1 million transfers? I don't think he feels the pressure of 1 million transfers. He probably doesn't even know that many people have bought him in, but yeah, Sunderland will be a difficult test to a certain extent. I think City will win, and rotation is going to be the biggest factor. Who would you have benched from Thiago, Rice, Timber, Gay? Well, probably Timber based on what I've done. You know, I started Lacroix over Timber. It's very close between those two. I mean, to be fair, Rice as well. He could get the assist and, you know, Arsenal win from a set piece and Rice gets bonus points and DEFCON. So he's a very good player. But yeah, to be fair, I'd maybe say Rice in this case. If Saliba isn't back, I reckon Rodgers causes problems. Oh yeah, for sure. And I think Arsenal need Timber at right back to deal with Rodgers. No worries, Harrison. I'll go to the World Cup draw now and give you my thoughts because several people have asked me about it. And, you know, I saw some of the, you know, groups, but I haven't memorized them like I usually do, you know, with the Champions League and World Cups. But yeah, I'm going to have a look now and give you my opinion. So before I do that, let me show you FPL Challenge, and there are some possible changes I will make. I just don't really back many, you know, 5 million defenders or under. So I've got Lamins in goal. And by the way, yeah, he's 5.1 million now, so this will not work. So what I'm going to do here is go for Ramsdale and potentially De Ligt. So I'm going to go for something like that. I know De Ligt is yellow flagged. And maybe change the formation. So at least add another defender in here. And arguably you could say add, yeah, another midfielder as well. So 2-2-1. Okay, so let's go for something a little bit different. But I'll be honest, I'm looking at the options and I'm not particularly infused. And that's why I went for Welbeck and Thiago in the first place. But yeah, possibly Richards. And then for the midfield, I mean, I've gone for Saka in here, which might seem a bit crazy. I'll keep Saka in there. Let's have an Arsenal player. For now. I mean, I can't guarantee what I'm going to do. Usually I haven't actually changed my FPL challenge team, even if someone is benched. I haven't just gone to the game and, you know, rectified things or modified it. But that's something I should do moving forwards because I can gain some easy points in the process. But yeah, midfield, 5 million or below. Well, yeah, it's just goalkeepers and defenders. So yeah, with the midfield, it's kind of irrelevant. It's either going for a back three. Yeah, I'm going to go for Haaland and Welbeck for now. Even Voltemada. I think that's the way I'm feeling. Well, yeah, I can't go for Voltemada because I've got Ramsdale. Yeah, that's probably what I'm going to go for at the moment. Subject to change, I'd say. It's not completely locked in, but still not too shabby overall. So we are going to get the Arsenal lineup very soon. I'm going to have those ready. I'll cover that and then call it a wrap. Saliba was not spotted with the Arsenal squad. So yeah, it will be Hincapié and yeah, Timber, White and yeah, Calafiori. That's going to be the back four. So that is a blow for Arsenal. But yeah, they've been dealing with that issue for a few games now. So yeah, no Saliba based on the reports there. Just to let you know. Trossard is with the team. So, yeah, he could be a starter for the Gunners. So, can I make a change to my predicted lineup? Let's do that. Let's do that shamelessly. So, let's go for White. And let's put Timber at centre-back. Yesh. And I already had this graphic prepared just in case. So, that comes in handy. Martinelli, Trossard, or Eze on the left wing. That is going to be a bomber clock. I'm going to say... Boom, boom. That's going to be difficult. I'm going to stick with... You know what? I'm going to go for this. Since Trossard was spotted with the squad... Martinelli Trossard, that is a flip of a coin. Let me know in the live chat, who do you think is going to start? We are going to find out in literally 3 minutes. But yeah. Yeah, exactly, Tustapaki. Lamens isn't a pick now. I am going to go through the other questions very soon. Just give me a second. But yeah, I was just updating these graphics and yeah. I'm going to go for Trossard, gut feeling, since he's with the squad. I think he'll... Yeah, I think Martinelli starts in the Champions League. So let's go for this. Predicted lineups, I want to show you very, very quickly because we're literally going to get the official one any second now. And then I can go for the World Cup draw, the Arsenal and Aston Villa lineups, and answering your last questions and comments before wrapping up. There could be a reaction stream tonight. Let me know in the live chat if you want to see that. And the plan is to do, well, Gameweek 16 content over the next couple of days. But first off, the focus will be on UCL Fantasy with a Tuesday deadline for match day 6. So let's now go to the lineups. Well, at least my prediction for Arsenal, my updated version. So Ben White at right back, Timber alongside Hincapié, Calafiori, and I think Trossard could start now over Gabriel Martinelli. That's a possibility. That's my main concern. Even with Odegaard, for example, that could change things. So Odegaard plays in the midfield and then Eze as the left winger. So we're going to find out anytime. But with Trossard being spotted with the squad, I think he could start there for the Gunners. Okay. And I'm just going to get a few screens up. I've got Aston Villa and Arsenal's pages waiting to go. And we're going to find out their team any second now. So yeah, in just a few seconds, we're going to find out. Let's see, where... That's annoying. Okay. And I'm also going to get the World Cup draw so we can talk about it. That's going to be a big talking point. Okay. Okay, so we should have the lineups now. And we'll see how accurate or inaccurate I was. We'll start off with the home team. So Aston Villa will be up first. So Emi Martinez does start in goal. So that was maybe a bit of mind games there from Unai Emery. Cash, Konsa, Pau Torres, Maatsen, Anana, Kamara, Tielemans, McGinn, Rogers, Watkins. So 2 changes in their defensive line, essentially, with Marco Bizot not playing, and it's Emi Martinez, and Maatsen is going to start over Luka Dean. With Arsenal, Raya, White, Timber, Hincapié, Calafiori, Rice, Zubimendi, Odegaard, Saka, Eze, Marino. So that's something I talked about, and I'm kind of gutted I didn't go for that sort of feeling with Odegaard starting in the midfield, but it does make sense. And that's sort of what Arsenal, or I should say Arteta, views as his best midfield and forward line, and having Odegaard, Eze play together. But yeah, having Trossard and Martinelli as super subs, that's obviously going to help. Gyökeres is also on the bench. It's a very decent squad there, despite all the injuries, and Saliba is missing out once again. The same goes for Mosquera as well. Yeah, Mosquera is not on the bench, so no recognised centre-back there for Arsenal on the bench. But what they could do, obviously, is bring in a Lewis Skelly, then put Calafiori centre-back, or maybe shift things around a little bit, because, all of them have been centre-backs by trade. So there you go. Both lineups have been covered. And what about the World Cup draw? I mean, Group A, Mexico, South Africa, South Korea, and UEFA Playoff D. Okay, Group B, Canada, UEFA Playoff A, Qatar and Switzerland. With Group C, Brazil, Morocco, Haiti, and Scotland. Group D, USA, Paraguay, Australia, and UEFA Playoff C. Yeah, Group E with Germany, Curaçao, Ivory Coast, and Ecuador. Group F, Netherlands, Japan, UEFA Playoff B, and Tunisia. Group G, Belgium, Egypt, Iran, and New Zealand. Group H, Spain, Cape Verde, Saudi Arabia, and Uruguay. Group I, probably the group of death at the moment, France, Senegal, FIFA Playoff 2, and Norway. Group J, Argentina, Algeria, Austria, and Jordan. Group K, Portugal, FIFA Playoff 1, Uzbekistan, and Colombia. And Group L, England, Croatia, Ghana, and Panama. So England get Panama in a World Cup group once again. That's amazing. And also Croatia. That's, actually, no, I think that was just the semi-finals. Yeah, they faced Belgium in 2018. Yeah, interesting. But some new matchups. I do think, basically, with this extended format, you've got, new teams coming in. That's the great part of it. You've got more matches, more money, revenue. But, yeah, a lot of these kind of big clashes, let's say, are being saved for the knockout stages. But there are some, decent matchups. I think Germany, Ecuador's one, Spain, Uruguay, England, Croatia, Portugal, Colombia, France with Norway, and also with Senegal. I think those are all decent matchups. Yeah, I think with the rest, maybe not inspiring on paper, but we'll see how it turns out. I'm going to answer a few more questions and, see what people are saying. But it is going to be time to wrap up fairly soon. But drop a like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, all that good stuff. And thank you to those that showed support to the channel. It is massively appreciated, to say the least. I think Challenge takes into account the price at the start of the week, so Lamens would still get the double. Not 100% on that, though. That is a possibility. If I go back to FPL Challenge, if I bring in Lamens, for example, it did say he cost 5 million in the game. So, yeah, now it says 5.1. Or maybe, actually, yeah, so if you had him from before the price rise, but if you sell him like I just did and then try to bring him back in, it doesn't work. So I think what I basically just did was I removed the possibility of having Lamens in my team, but it's not a big deal. It's still quite similar, covering Newcastle and United defensively. So yeah, that is a good point. I went with Verbruggen and Chow. I think Chow's an excellent signing for the long term. Well, I thought Saliba would start if he was fit, but yeah, after seeing the reports from the last half an hour, before obviously covering the lineup, yeah, I knew he wasn't going to start, and there would be Timber, White, Calafiori, and Hincapié. Yeah, I basically just watched the parts involving Argentina. Yeah, the FPL Challenge team is on screen now. Curious to know what's the worst FPL decision to go against you. For me, it was Solly March not being awarded his goal. Yeah, that is right up there for me. There were other examples like Bowen not getting the assist against Tottenham last season. That would also spring to mind. But yeah, I think the Solly March one is probably the worst of them all. England versus Panama. Yeah, nice one, Van Halen. Yeah. Forcing the World Cup draw. Yeah, even the commentator, I think, from the BBC was taking the piss out of it. Yeah, I mentioned like some of the matchups I'm interested in, but the rest doesn't look inspiring on paper. I don't think Premier League players give a crap about FPL. Only the ones that play it, and even then, it's not going to be their priority. Norway against France is going to be a fantastic game. It should be fairly decent. I think France could struggle there, but, a year, well, in this case, 6 months is a long time. The first 87 minutes is the worst World Cup ceremony draw ever. Yeah, I'm happy I didn't watch it. 20, and by the way, I only watched the draw, so when they were actually doing the thing, but the ceremony and stuff, I didn't watch it. 2010 opening game, repeat Mexico versus South Africa. True? Yeah, hopefully Spain don't win it though, just saying. It's going to be walking wounded in this World Cup, 104 games. Yeah, it's absolutely insane, right? There are good things about the extended format and stuff, but yeah, not everything is positive. Next game week, I plan to sell Xhaka to Foden and Mateta to Wilson or Raul or anyone cheaper, planning to bench boost in 17. Well, I think from those strikers you mentioned, it's going to be Jimenez for me. ANWR says, I haven't used my free hit and I don't need it this game week. Best week to use it in my opinion, your opinion. Dubravka, Virgil, Timber, Richards, Enzo, Mbumo, Gakpo, Foden, Anderson, Haller, Mateta, Pope, Senesi, Guiu, Rodon. I think in your situation, Game Week 17 might look pretty decent, actually. Canada will be the screw-up World Cup host against Switzerland and potentially Italy if they qualify. Yeah, I mean, usually hosts do fairly well, but you're calling them out not to do so. Martinelli to chase cash. Yeah, I mean, that was my original prediction for Martinelli to start, but yeah, I think Eze, being in that position makes sense. Would you free hit in Game Week 18 or 19? Very team dependent. Probably 18. I think the sooner the better, even though we're quite late on now. Joss went with Mateta instead of Welbeck, out Timber, Van Heck in, doubled Arsenal with Eze or Marino, Virgil out, Burn in, well, let the show begin. Wow. Nice little rhyme, I guess, but good transfers overall. I'm not a massive fan of Van Heck, but as a fifth defender, he could do a decent job. Went 2-1-2 in challenge, Verbruggen, Chow, Munoz, Bruno, Thiago, and Haaland. I just don't think Brighton keep a clean sheet, and even in your prediction, you haven't gone for it, so that's why I haven't gone for Van Heck, but that's another possibility for me. Do you think there'll be a World Cup fantasy? Well, there was for the last 2 editions, essentially, and I covered the last one. And yeah, I mean, I can't... The plan would be to cover it, and I'll keep you updated on it, and it also depends on, you know, the reception, the feedback, the sort of engagement, but yeah, usually I cover the Euros and the World Cup on my channel. Personally, I prefer avoiding fantasy games when it comes to the international tournaments. I find it fun, but I get what you're saying, you know, just kind of disconnect from fantasy football and just enjoy the games for what they are, but, you know, the last World Cup, you know, is the first time I played World Cup fantasy, and Argentina won it, so yeah, nice little lucky charm, maybe. The World Cup final will have halftime Super Bowl 30 minutes instead of 15. Yeah, that's just stupid. Not going to lie to you. Yeah, Harrison. Obviously, we now know the lineup, but yeah, I still think it's a good squad, and Trossard and Martinelli are better off the bench at times. That's going to be a bomber clot. Yeah, I think Trossard will start. Definitely not confident, though. Yeah, so a lot of us had a similar opinion. Marino should cook, hopefully. FIFA just sold to Trump. No City news. The Lick Challenge, though, it's the last game. Yeah, that's what I've gone for right now. Can you do a combined lineup for UEFA matchup between City and Madrid? Wait, when you say combined, what, so like, okay. Combined 11, Man City, Madrid. Courtois in goal. Well, assuming everyone is fit, and by the way, Trent is going to be unavailable, I would put Trent in there, but yeah, that's not going to be the case. I mean, yeah, when everyone's fit, Ruben Dias and Rudiger. I put Gvardiol left back, even though he hasn't played there in a while. And at right back, I'm going to say, yeah, either Trent or Carvajal. In the midfield, yeah, Rodri, but unfortunately he hasn't been fit for a while now. I would probably go for Valverde and Bellingham, even though he's been off it for some time now. Yeah, left wing, Vinicius Jr. I'd put Haaland up front and probably Foden on the right. That's my sort of combined 11 for City, Madrid. Liverpool, Inter. I rate Summer very highly. I'd just about go for Alisson. Yeah, Bastoni definitely gets in alongside Virgil van Dijk. That's, you know, not up for debate for me. Dumfries would also get in. And, I mean, they do play as wing-backs, essentially. DeMarco as well. But yeah, Robertson would have been the clear answer a few years ago. I think now you probably go for DeMarco. In the midfield, Kalanoglu would get in. The thing is, I'd still rate McAllister very highly. Gravenberch is also a quality player. Szoboszlai has been excellent this season, despite everything that's happened. But yeah, I think Kalanoglu gets in, and then 2 of those Liverpool midfielders I just mentioned. So yeah, I'd probably go for McAllister, Kalanoglu, and I'm probably going to go for Gravenberch, but Szoboszlai would be hard done by to miss out. Salah still gets in, even though he has been poor. I mean, yeah, Isak, Ekitike, Lautaro Martinez. I mean, if it was last season, everyone would say Isak, you know, no debate, but I'm going to stick with my boy Lautaro Martinez. Why not? And yeah, Inter don't really have wingers per se because they play wingbacks, and Liverpool with Gakpo on the left. I just find a way to put Isak and Lautaro Martinez up front together, or you put Isak on the left, which he did several times for Newcastle and Real Sociedad. So that's my way of fitting both of them in. So that's my combined 11 for both of them. Yeah, Scotland and Brazil. Yeah, no Saliba isn't starting. Yeah, it's a big blow for Arsenal. Group A is the group of life. Curious to know what's the worst FPL. Yeah, I covered that, sorry. In the next World Cup, I hear they want a full alphabet of groups. It will probably happen one day. So third place teams also advance, makes the groups less exciting. Yeah, that's true. 8 out of 12 of the third place teams. Yeah, that's true. I hope we make it out of the group. All the best there, ANWR. I don't think many teams, even the top nations, would want to play you. Well, I doubt I'm going to see India in the World Cup in my lifetime. Well, you never know. I mean, it is possible, but yeah. that's the good thing about the extended formats, right? It gives different countries a chance to qualify for the first time or for the first time in years. Brazil, Morocco, 3-0 Morocco. Well, Brazil aren't great nowadays, so I think Morocco could win. Not by 3-0 though. As a Frenchman, I'm not very happy about our group. Norway will be a huge challenge, and Senegal aren't bad either. Usually we have really easy groups, so Mbappe will have to carry. Yeah, it's arguably the group of death. It's not like... I wouldn't say it's like completely daunting and like, wow, that's extremely tough, but yeah, it's still not going to be easy. You got to be on it, and losing the first game or not winning it could put a lot of pressure. If Liverpool lose, Liverpool will sack their manager. Well, I still think he gets until the turn of the year. That's what the reports indicated, but it has been poor for a while now for Liverpool. Not the first time FIFA sold their soul. I didn't say that. I'm just reading out a comment. Do you think Ramsdale starts? Yes. Nick Pope is out for several weeks due to a groin injury. Wait, can I really keep Lamens? I think so, because what I did in the morning and overnight, I refreshed a page, and it still said Lamens is 5 million. So do that, well, yeah, you still can in FPL Challenge. Refresh the page, and if it still says 5 million, it should work. I can't guarantee it, but I think that's the way it works, because you bought him before he rose in price. Any Man City team news? No. 7 Africans or African nations in the competition. Well, I'm so happy about that. I'm a born citizen in Africa. Yeah, Kenya, yeah. I'll be behind Africa to qualify for the round of 16. Yeah, and it would be good to see, like we saw in Morocco in the last World Cup, an African team go far in the tournament. Being half Aussie and English, I'm keen for the USA matchup. Man, we better win. Yeah, all the best of that. I've got American, family and stuff, and, so I'm not going to hate on them too much, but yeah, it should be good, and it's nice to see some different matchups at times. Never ever heard a country call FIFA Playoff 2. Yeah, that is definitely a good point. Ignacio says, Grande Dylan, gracias like always, thank you very much. ¿Qué previsión tienes para doble capitán? O triple, ¿no? Capitán. ¿Esperará a double game week o single game week? Oh, ¿qué piensas para el match day de Champions? Bueno, voy a hablar de esto en los videos de Champions League y en el deadline stream del martes, pero sí, con triple capitán de FPL, creo que la jornada 17 con Haaland contra West Ham es la mejor opción. Y con esta temporada ahora tenemos 2 chips, así que 2 wildcards, 2 bench boosts, free hits y triple captains. Así que antes de la jornada 20 tienes que usar esos chips y boosters, porque si no, ya está, no puedes usar más. Así que con el triple captain usarlo en la jornada 17. I hate the fact they've done the groups this early, especially without all the teams being qualified. Yeah, that also doesn't help in terms of fully engaging people with the draw. But it's always been done in December, and you get like these World Cup qualifiers in March. It kind of builds a bit of intrigue, I guess, but I get your point. Last World Cup fantasy was my best ever rank in a fantasy game, finished like 600 in the wild, backed Argentina all the way. Yeah, nice. And you might have had some doubts about that after the Saudi Arabia game, but the rest is history. But yeah, World Cup fantasy went well for me. It wasn't my best ever rank. That would have been in UCL fantasy, but yeah, World Cup was still a lot of fun. Thoughts on Trump getting a peace prize from FIFA? I hate Infantino. These people, football executives only chase money and power and take the soul out of the game. It's not too surprising. I didn't really watch it, nothing like that. So yeah, I'm happy I didn't. Well, Hincapie, I talked about this for several weeks when Gabriel got injured. I highlighted him as a differential and cheaper way of covering Arsenal defensively. So he is going to be an option for the next couple of weeks, but we could see Gabriel return by the end of the month or going into January. Is this potentially the worst World Cup ever? Let's see how it pans out, It could be the worst World Cup ever. Maybe it turns out to be the best one, but all we can offer is our opinions, and I don't think it'll be the worst ever, but maybe I'm going to be proven wrong. Let's wait and find out. Hello, Dylan. Hope all is good. Looking forward to the weekend. Yeah, same here, Banjo. All the best to you as well. Brazil, Morocco, and Scotland in the same group again, like the 1998 World Cup. Yeah, hopefully France don't win it. Just saying. No offense to Arthur and the others. My UCL team is full of injuries. Yes, I'll be covering UCL Fantasy very soon. I don't think I've got that many injuries per se, but, well, then again, I've got Gabriel and Dumfries. So, yeah, the Limitless, I just put it off the back of my mind. It was horrendous. Yeah, that was very disappointing. So, the less said about that, the better. Yeah, I know McAllister's been crap this season. I'm not going to deny that, but I'm just talking about as an overall player. Because otherwise, Szoboszlai would get in ahead of him. I could not possibly remember. 1998, too young. I wasn't even born in 1998, just saying. That's one thing I like more. Countries is a good way to grow the game. Yes, that's the good thing about it. If you want to look at it from a half glass full sort of perspective. The World Cup's going to take 6 months, says to Stepaki. Sonika says, missed the deadline and now I can't even load my team. Yeah, it's updating. There's nothing you can do at this point. You get 5 free transfers at least for Gameweek 16, but obviously the main sort of appeal and one of the top recommendations I made all season was to use up all your free transfers by the time we got to Gameweek 16. Also, the winner of Iraq, Bolivia, and Suriname, also in the same group as France. Yes. I mean, Bolivia, yeah, they somehow snuck into the World Cup qualification playoffs. Yeah, it's a shame Venezuela didn't get there. I wanted to see them do that. Yeah, no worries, Harrison James. I bought Lamins at 5 but took out, but I didn't save it. I reset. So I got him at 5, should be okay. Yeah, especially if, like I said, you refresh the page and it still says 5 million in the FPL Challenge squad because it lists their prices above their names and kits. Marino captain last week was good. Nice. Yeah, very nicely done. Yeah, I just did the boring thing with Haaland, so I can't really celebrate too much. I made the podium, Sister Fisted Parky. Oh, yes, in the leaderboards, right? Yes, Easy is number 1. He usually is. A big up to everyone who's in the leaderboard. Always check it out. That doesn't mean spamming. Spamming is not going to really get you anywhere there, but yeah, I do appreciate those who are near the top of the leaderboard. I'm not even sure, to be honest. I think it took them almost an hour to even start the draw. In fact, it took them almost an entire game worth of football, 87 minutes to start. But I wasn't there. I was not there. The draw was early so they can sell tickets. Yeah, that is also a good point. I mean, it's always been in December. That's nothing too unfamiliar to us. The draw has to be made early so teams can have time to arrange friendlies. Yeah, that's also true. You can see the pros and cons behind it, but yeah, also it builds intrigue because you're like, oh, Italy could be in this group, but if not, it could be Wales or something like that, so I get it. Yeah. America's 5 hours ahead, so bad sleep for the World Cup. And it also depends on the area, because America has different time zones within, the country, so that's not going to be ideal for a lot of Europeans. FIFA can't give out peace prizes. They are a football organization. What the fuck plus peace? What freaking peace? Yeah, well said. FIFA will go the American way. FIFA will change this World Cup just for Trump. Yeah, look, I assess a World Cup based on the quality of football. The Qatar one had a lot of controversy behind it. So it's like every World Cup now and look, by the way, I understand all the concerns about the American one and also about the Qatar one, so I'm not downplaying them, but I think we have also this, I think it's just becoming a natural thing now to sort of analyze all these World Cups, the venues, the countries, the way things have happened, so I think that's natural. It's about to go down. Last game, week 14, I got 80 points. Let's go. I've been performing due to the help of Dylan, so thank you so much. Or as Kenny people would say, asante sana, meaning thank you. I said sana in the way you would in Spanish, sorry, which means healthy, but I appreciate the kind words, Ian, and all the best for Gameweek 15 and beyond. Yeah, Trossard is orange flagged in UCL Fantasy. Yeah, well, that's because Trossard was flagged before. An orange flag is different because that essentially just means a player's doubtful in UCL Fantasy. It's not like FPL where you've got a red flag, a yellow, and an orange, a bit like a traffic light system, if you will. In UCL Fantasy, you do have a red flag, which means a player suspended, and it will show you with the icon, or they're just unavailable, they're injured. But yeah, it's either doubtful or completely out. They don't have that kind of third sort of status, if you will. But yeah, Trossard will soon be cleared, assuming he doesn't get injured today. Hopefully, touch wood, as in from furniture, whatever. So yeah, hopefully Trossard and all these Arsenal players can stay fit. Also bad for someone from Asian continent. Oh yeah, exactly. It's going to be a very big test. Let's go leaderboard, says Banjo. Okay, yeah, that is true, Safa. But a lot of these politicians do, if we're being honest. But I don't want to get executed. I'm not going to lie to you. Even though this is just a FPL deadline stream and the deadline is passed, if you will. But I completely, echo your sentiments, and for a lot of people who have been speaking about it. Halftime shows will ruin football. Yes. And we saw a bit of this in the Copa America last year. That was a disaster, the way they organized the final, the security, etc. The FIFA Peace Prize will not exist again after this. They only made it for Trump. Well, never say never. It could happen in the future. We just don't know when. They even ended the draw with his favorite song. They started and ended it for Trump. It's ridiculous, isn't it? It's what I thought with the Russian World Cup. Exactly, that's what I mean. Russia and then Qatar and now America. So they all have their controversies. Yeah, I'll be honest, I didn't like the World Cup in Russia. There were some good games in there, some shocks and stuff, but I think 2014 and 2010, I preferred those two. And yeah, obviously the 2022 one is my favorite, but that's for a biased sort of reason. But thank you everyone for watching. It has been a blast talking to you for the past couple of hours. If you haven't already, like this video, subscribe to my channel, and also hit that notification bell so you're always up to date on my content, both UCL Fantasy and FPL. Follow me on X, Instagram, and Blue Sky, Dylan RCM, and check all the links in the description for my Patreon and the championships, further links to my videos, amongst many other perks. There's my Discord server, the UCL Fantasy League. Well, you'll see the UCL Fantasy League in my respective Champions League content, but there's so much there in the description. And yeah, be sure to, try out different things. If you want to support the channel even further, click the join button or go to patreon.com/FPL Dylan. I'll be honest, I can't even get my mouse to work right now, which is really weird. I'm literally trying to get the screen up, and I've finally been able to do it. So, yeah, at least that is working now. But it has been a pleasure talking to you for the last couple of hours, answering all your questions, making last-minute transfers, essentially. And, now we enter a sort of unique period in Fantasy Premier League with 5 free transfers at our disposal because of AFCON. I covered the Arsenal. The Aston Villa and Arsenal lineups, and yeah, top 10 captains, clean sheet odds, everything that you need to know. So yeah, just keep your eyes peeled for more content. There could be a reaction stream tonight, so let me know your thoughts if you want to see that as well. Show support to the channel, hype the video, share it, all that good stuff, and I'll see you very soon for UCL Fantasy content for match day 6 with the best wildcard and limitless squads, my team selection, and another deadline stream on Tuesday. So I'll see you very soon, and also stay tuned for the Gameweek 16 content with the wildcard squad, my team selection, transfer tips, and if you want to see other bits of content, then I'm also open to your feedback. Take care, enjoy the football, and I wish you all the best of luck for Gameweek 15.